Welcome everybody to the 4th of July celebration here on MEAD. That's right, welcome. We got some great guests tonight. We got some music, we got some laughs, and a whole bunch more. So stay with us here. Hit the like button, share out the stream. Thank you so much. In fact, I'm going to premiere a brand new song tonight, but here's one from last night.
Uh-oh.
And we get our musical interlude from Tom.
What do I have to do? What do I have to say? Yeah. What do I have to go through to make this bitch go away? Well, every morning that I get up, I see the news on the Twitter. They say that they have finally given up. Oh yeah. Sources say she's a quitter. Oh yeah, but she destroyed my galaxy far, far away. And made Willow go far, far astray. Well, now she's gone giving Indy a Viking funeral. What's next, ladies and gentlemen? Is it Howard the Duck, the musical? Oh no, it's nothing taken, it's no one safe. Oh yeah, might as well give up, bitch, checkmate. I don't care what you say, you're such a liar. Kathleen Kennedy will never retire, yeah.
They will find a necromancer to animate her fucking corpse.
That's right. Hello. Hope everybody's having a wonderful 4th of July. Whoops. I had Script Doctor in here, but now he's back in here. Okay. I hit the button twice, I think. Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. Welcome, everybody. We have with us on this 4th of July celebration, the boss man himself. How you doing, Andre?
I'm doing excellent. Greetings, everyone. Happy 4th of July, and thanks for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you here. It's late where you're at, and you're...
It is, so I can't stay here for too long, but I wanted to pop in and extend my congratulations.
Well, we're glad to have you pop in at least. Thank you for being here. We have a couple Canadians with us. We got CC Karaoke. How you doing, my friend?
Happy to be here. We celebrated our day 3 days ago on the 1st of July, so still in a celebratory mood up here in Canada, and everyone's having a good time in the park around my rig.
Drinking some Bud Lights?
Yeah. No.
I'm kidding. The other Canadian we have with us is Mr. Script Doctor. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I am happy to be here to celebrate the 4th with all of you wonderful people and the chat.
Yeah, I missed you. We ain't talked in a little bit. It's been a few days.
Has it been a few days?
It feels like it's been
for me.
Yeah,
yeah. Two holidays back to back, 4 days apart.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. We also have joining us Clobber in times. We're outnumbered here, Clobby.
Oh, we are. That's okay.
We're the only Americans on the panel.
But we Americans love our friends from across the pond.
We do, except for the French.
North.
Fuck the French.
Well, yeah. Other than them, though, we
I
love
agree
all
with
the other
that.
ones. We love all of our friends in other countries because we're America. We love you all.
Stuck up
about
fuckers.
Freedom. And happy Independence Day, because Independence Day is not just a country; it's a dream, and it's
I was kidding, but you know what? Fuck the French. We don't have one French. I've never gotten one French super chat.
I don't know.
We do. Yeah, we
They're
have.
kind of busy.
Have we really?
Right now.
Yes, a ton of them. They come in
Really?
euros.
Well, they don't come in French.
No, that's euro.
Well, they better start speaking French because I don't think they're listening. I think they're a bunch of stuck-up pricks.
I don't think they have the time to listen with all
kinda
the
busy
trouble
right
that's
now.
happening in their streets.
Like, we are
Yeah,
so
they really
busy having a revolution. We have no time for your stupidness
Yeah, silly Americans.
and your silly freedom fries.
Your freedom fries. Yeah.
Yes, I spit on them. I'm kidding. I love the French. I love everybody. It's
everybody.
been a wonderful day. I got stuck several
Literally.
times by the doctor, so
Oh my goodness, the doctor.
I felt like a
today on a day
fountain.
like today. Well, it doesn't feel like a Tuesday, does it?
yeah, I'm dealing
No,
with
he
a bunch
did
of
to you,
crap,
but
that's why I didn't really do anything today. So I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna stream. I was gonna take it all off, but it's a day.
No barbecue.
I'm glad everybody's here. Pretty much nothing to really discuss as far as news wise, is there? I mean, I haven't been paying attention. I came in at the tail end of Mr. H's stream.
It's a relatively quiet news day. The biggest news is that we apparently have learned, although I do not know from exactly where, that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness cost $100 million more than initially reported.
Ooh.
So it only profited about 50 million.
Wow.
Wow. Where did we hear this from?
That's what I do not recall exactly right now.
Okay, not even like so you don't have an idea if it was just somebody inside Disney, just somebody who said, "Oh, baloney," or somebody like that.
Someone like that.
Okay. All right. Well, interesting. We're not surprised because we slowly been hearing that a lot of these productions are costing a hell of a lot more than they're reporting initially, which is even more astounding to me because we have learned in the past, Andre, through like our interview with Gary Tunnicliffe, where these movies usually they report a hell of a lot more than they cost. But now we're learning they're reporting a lot less than what they're costing, which is weird.
But there's like two sides to that because the traditional reasoning for reporting that they cost more is because you want to create the impression that this is a more expensive, higher budgeted, more refined production than it is, and those are like the ones that.
In the case of The Exorcist, the beginning, yeah.
Oh, and also tax credits. The more you spend, the more you can get back
true
potentially.
Exactly. Whereas in this case, it's really more a matter of they get the tax credits anyway, but then it's a matter of what do you want to admit to the public. Because if you admit to the public that, our movie really had like a total negative cost of $500 million, if you admit that, then everyone can kind of like see that, boy, you really messed this up, didn't you? Whereas if you claim that, that it was like 50 to 100 or even 150 million less than that, then now suddenly it appears that you're a really clever executive who made some money. And that you didn't, that's between the IRS and the shareholders and stuff like that. You don't have, the trades don't need to know.
Well, this is a trend, though, that's going the other way, though. And like I said, this also goes along with my movie math that I talk about, where a movie costs, it depends on who's asking, right? If it's somebody that, like the press, the media, they'll tell you it cost all the money in the world and made all the money in the world. If it's, somebody who's working for them and they may owe money, then it's like, oh, well, we spent all the money where we have no money to spend and the movie didn't make any money. But here we go. Here's the actual article, thanks to Admiral Adam. Disney reveals Doctor Strange 2 cost $100 million more than its estimated budget. This is part of Forbes. You got to be a subscriber thingy because this is using...
Oh, there you go. See, it's one of the traits, so they know what they're talking about.
Disney has revealed that last year's blockbuster Doctor Strange in a Multiverse of Madness cost $94.5 million more to make than the movie's $200 estimated budget. See, right there. That's almost $300 million. That seems to be the average here, though, isn't it? Now it's gone from 200 to 300 million. How's inflation working out for you guys?
Inflation on top of that. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it looks like they did the same thing that, if I'm reading this right, looks like they did what Valiant did to find out Indiana Jones's budget, because it looks like they shot it in the UK, since they have to report it. Oh, interesting. Wow, that's not good for them. Let's see what you guys are saying out in chat. We got some super chats here. Alex M says, when your heart goes, Padme, Padum, Kylie Minogue. I have not heard the song yet, but everybody's talking about it. Maybe I should go listen to it. Tiger Valley 62 says, happy birthday, American brothers and sisters. Yes, indeed. Happy birthday, America. You earned it. What's your first thought? Says, happy 4th of July. All right. The question for the night is, what is the better Independence Day movie? Independence Day or The Patriot? Ooh. Well, neither one of them. Well, The Patriot is not very historically accurate, and Independence Day. If Paul
Independence
was
Day is
here,
deliberately fictional.
yeah, like, well, no, I mean, he would be griping about you can't do that with an Apple computer. That's what he was doing the other night.
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah,
the
he's
other
just
part, too,
going
is
off
that
on that for
that
like 10
that's
minutes.
assuming that our computer software isn't based off of or inspired by the alien technology.
Yeah,
So, like, if
and
the
I think that's
Apple,
what they're implying. But yeah,
that's probably what they're trying to imply. But I mean, even then, you have so much differences in language and how we
oh
approach.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
sci-fi.
yeah, it's weird.
Me personally, I'll probably watch Independence Day tonight, but I haven't watched The Patriot in a long time. Maybe I'll give that one a spin. I don't know.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
like them both. You know what's funny is they're both from Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin.
And yet good nonetheless. They're only two good movies, probably, right?
Pretty much. You're not wrong there, besides Stargate.
Yeah, I wasn't too big on that one, I gotta admit. I didn't think the Stargate was that good. You like that one?
It's all right.
It's got its moments, but I think the television series was a bit
I
more.
was say it inspired more than it. Yeah.
I hear you.
What about you, Clobby? Which one would you pick?
As far as what to watch tonight for
Which one do you
Out
think
of These
is the better
Two, you mean?
4th of July movie? Yeah.
Well, it's a science fiction geek. It is a guilty pleasure, Independence Day, but I love The Patriot. That is actually a tough call for me. So I love them both, but I would probably go with, like, just on a whim, probably go to Independence Day tonight over Lethal Patriot.
Welcome to Earth.
As I always call it, is us. Am I getting some kind of noise in my...
There, I don't know if you're coming through the right
clicking?
mic or something.
Is that me?
Check your mic. Yeah, I don't know.
Let me mute and see if it's still me.
Yeah, I think it is you. There's something going on with your mic. It doesn't sound like your regular mic.
That's weird. Let me try something.
Just check your settings and stuff. Make sure.
I'm gonna dump out and come back in.
That might work too. Script Doctor, which one would you pick?
I probably watch The Patriot more so because it has a better narrative structure than Independence Day. But Independence Day does have a lot of the high concept tropes and character arcs that you'd like. Plus, Brent Spiner is pretty good in that, and Judd Hirsch.
Yeah,
that's a tough one because the Roland Emmerich Independence Day has one heck of a cast, and aside from Mel Gibson and The Patriot, I can't remember many other standing out performances. Yeah, maybe Independence Day because it's got a far more versatile and notable cast in it. Definitely made up for a lot of the flaws that are in Independence Day.
Yeah, they're a good cast. Yeah, with this Lethal Patriot, all you have is the that schmuck who plays the bad guy. Was it Jason Isaacs?
Oh, right.
He's good.
No, he is good, but like it's just it's more peppered of good talent as opposed to, oh man, there's an actor that really knocks that out of the park.
Pretty much Mel.
I mean, yeah, even Independence Day has Jamie Lee Curtis in it for a cameo.
Does it really?
Yeah, she screams, "I hope they bring back Elvis."
Oh, that was her? Oh.
That was her.
Yeah. And The Patriot has Adam Baldwin, so there you go. And Independence Day also has him as well.
Yeah, yes.
I just remembered, yeah. Brent Spiner and a plethora of
really a lot of really good
cast.
Good cast. Most of them are like really experienced character actors. I think that's why it kind of shines because every character actor knows how to steal a scene and also give to make a scene better.
Yeah, I might have to fit that one in later myself if I can.
Yeah. What about you, CC?
I might be biased as a science fiction fan, but I'm definitely going with Independence Day. Especially when you look at the box office this summer and in recent years with all of the overblown CGI. It's like I watched Indy yesterday and there was that train sequence and it reminded me of Solo, a Star Wars story. They have that train sequence there. It's not real. It's just a CGI train and that doesn't have that impact. But when you have a movie like Independence Day, when you finally see the alien and it's real, it's like it's not just computer generated, and you don't see them going crazy on screen and blowing everything up. You see the spaceships do that, sure, on a model, on a set, like an actual explosion and an actual physical alien on screen that you don't see too much of. Like with Jaws, you don't see the shark until you do, right? And I think a lot of modern blockbusters could learn from why Independence Day is such a classic to be watched on a day, on this day every year, and why everybody comes back to it over and over again. So that's my pick.
Yeah, I gotta watch. I watch the Omega Glory every year.
Yeah.
Star Trek episode.
Andre.
Independence Day. Easy. For the simple reason that you mentioned that the Patriot takes a little bit too many liberties, although I do appreciate its goal. Whereas whereas Independence Day is a fairy tale. However, it is a fairy tale which succeeds in highlighting the diversity of America, the difference in opinion of America, but Americans coming together to bail everyone else out when needed. So that's the perfect 4th of July movie.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, I think that works.
I just put up a poll so you guys out in the chat can vote yourselves on that.
Yeah, and it even has honor, sacrifice, family, all the kind of stuff that you could ever want. It is the perfect movie for 4th of July. Doesn't matter that it's sci-fi. It is a movie that highlights the best of America in a fictionalized setting.
Indeed. Yes.
And Jeff Goldblum.
And Jeff Goldblum is Jeff Goldblum.
He's among the he's part of the best of America.
We'll give it a cold. What's your first thought? Well, I forgot to answer myself. Clearly, I'd pick Independence Day. I think I answered that already, but yeah. What's your first thought? Says Happy 4th of July. All right. The question for the night is, we already got this one. What did I do here? Okay, here we go. David Glenn says, is Tom available for weddings and bar mitzvahs? Maybe. Depends on what you pay, what you feed.
And how far you have to drive.
Exactly. Never know. I got another song coming up, though, in a bit. Shanatsky says, for you, the day Shanatsky graced your stream was the most important day of your life, but for me, it was a Tuesday. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Well, happy 4th of July, Shanatsky. The Rookie Critic's in the house. How you doing, Rookie Critic? Says, happy 4th, peeps. I just rewatched The Patriot, and now I wish they'd make a House of Dragons type show, but in that era. Could work.
So does you want dragons in that era? Or what?
Yeah, do you want dragons in The Patriot? Like we fought for our
against dragons?
Freedom against dragons. And
well, the British had a whole breeding ground of dragons that they sent to make sure their colonies were under control, that the Americans were able to liberate themselves from.
There you go. Get on that one, Script.
The Last Dragon Slayer. Could be. Waltman says, I mean, Secret Service did find some white substance in the White House, later confirmed to be what everybody will be thinking when you read this. Exactly, yeah.
Salt.
And it just, it was a Coke. And it was kind of ironic that Frank Marshall had just been there. No, I'm kidding. It was Hunter Biden, actually.
Apparently, there may have been many others who also used that particular substance there.
Oh, I'm sure there. Yeah. It's Washington. Kitty Bear says, happy 4th of July. Enjoy the fireworks at Disney. Well, it's more like fire.
Dumpster fire. The dumpster fireworks.
Yeah.
It's not putting down anything of value, really. So
right. Happy 4th, everyone. Just got back from celebrating this wonderful holiday in the Second Amendment with some 357 Magnum and 44 Magnum. Oh, look, you went to shooting range. Cool.
Oh, some Magnum episodes, maybe.
Very patriotic indeed.
Yes.
Let me double check and see if there wasn't any member chats. There was. Grand Admiral Adam, thank you so much. I did get that article, so thank you for the member chat and thank you for the article. So we appreciate that. But we got a couple more here. Call sign a la carte says, neither Lord of the Rings or Fellowship of the Ring. It's all about brotherhood, coming together and sacrifice for the greater good. And then Mecha J says, what are your thoughts on the sequel Independence Day Resurgence? It sucks.
Oh yeah.
It was
Never saw it.
horrible.
That bad, huh?
Horrible.
Wow.
Didn't know what it wanted to be.
Yeah. And unbelievable in so many spots. And it had potential, but it was just bad.
Damn.
I saw it, and I honestly don't remember it.
That's the other thing. It's like a lot of it's just kind of a remember the first movie kind of shit through most of the movie. And then, you know, just the shadow of Will Smith hanging over the movie. And then you're just sitting there watching it. And a lot of the same shit happens. We got some cool new tech. We got a base on Moon. I don't even remember much else.
They dragged Robert Loggia out of, I don't know where he was,
Really?
and threw him down in the crowd for.
He was in that? Wow, he must have been
Yeah,
old.
he was. It was.
Yeah.
And what was it like? There's another alien race that came to warn humanity of the other aliens, and it's like, well, where were you 30 years ago, type of thing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is it was setting up like another trilogy or something like that, and it just didn't. Yeah, so there was kind of like
that it was like that it ended with like, okay, now we're gonna come and get the aliens or something. That I do remember.
Okay.
Yeah, there was it like there was a signal buried in the original signal from the other aliens or some shit like that. I don't remember.
That I
seeing
don't.
that. I don't remember. It has literally been that long since I've seen it when it first came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, this movie was bad. I didn't have very high hopes for it or anything, but I was just like, it was just one of those, kind of like Indiana Jones, much worse than you even thought it
doesn't need to be made, yeah.
Not that I really want to talk about that, but yeah.
Oh man, the industry's at least some of the screenwriters I know are coping hard because they think this movie cost $280 million. I'm like, where are you getting that number from?
Yeah, it costs a lot more than that, especially if Doctor Strange costs that much. War Monkey says, yeah, they wanted to make. Oops, yeah, they wanted to make fight scene. Yeah, I meant to grab this one though. Professor Haitian has been a member for 23 months and says, need to rewatch Reign of Fire. Saw it in an old comic I was reading, speaking of over-the-top movie. You know, I only watched a bit of that, and I think the CGI kind of turned me off, if I remember right.
Reign of Fire?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Woody Harrelson tries to take down a dragon in
something like
fisticuffs.
that.
Is that Reign of Fire? That's not the one with Kristen Bale? And
Yeah, that's the one. That is
I
the
was
one.
going to say, yeah.
And Matt...
Dragon movie,
Matthew
though,
McConaughey?
yeah.
No, it's Christian Bale and Woody Harrelson, I think.
No, it's Matthew McConaughey.
It's Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's hard to get those two. Tell those two
I
apart.
remember that one.
Oh my gosh, script was wrong for once.
It's okay.
I think I just had a problem with my faith and all that stuff.
Be mean to script, why don't you, man? Jeez.
Well, normally he's right about everything, even when he corrects me all the time. Pilgrim Media is
country. You know, look how you're treating him.
He's a Canadian today. It's our birthday. H Ford says wants a pay to Harrison Ford just wants a payday, yes or no. As far as Indy, he got that long to spend it, man. I mean,
no. And did he need it? Now, I almost wish I could just think that because I don't understand why he would do what was done to this. I don't want to talk about it. What was done to this character who claimed to love it. So he claimed to love it so much. I almost wish it was just for mercenary reasons because I don't understand. Either that or he's just crazy because to do this to this character.
Well, think of it this way from an actor. It's a character he loves who's playing something that is different to what he's done before, which is that he's playing someone who's dealing with age and loss, and he's also playing opposite a female lead that's not romantic. And that's something a lot of actors want to do. I mean, those things alone, they can work in a story. You just have to understand what the dynamic is because you want to have like again some great stories about like fathers and daughters. Like that's kind of like the angle that they were trying to emulate here. I just don't think they understood what that relationship really entails, which is why it was so sloppy and poorly done.
It's funny because I kind of pretty much predicted you'd say something along those lines. Not the kid part, but about the part how actors like to play these kind of versions of themselves because you've said it before, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do they think people want to see these versions of the characters? Is my question.
But the box office is looking grim. Apparently, it only did like 12 million yesterday.
Yeah, that's a 5-day 82 million, right?
Yeah.
Oof.
Holy crap. Well,
Yeah, this
there you
is
go.
And
tracking
that's-
worse than the Flash. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is what it should have done in its opening day.
The
I
preview.
think the Friday should have
Right.
been 28
Well,
million.
maybe not the previews, but yeah, between previews and opening day. Yeah.
Yeah, between Thursday and Friday, it should have gotten that 82 million. But that is what you get in the 5 days. That's unbelievable. Actually, no, it's not unbelievable, but it's very, very sobering for Disney and Lucasfilm.
And the industry as a whole, it sounds like. And I mean, I don't know what you've been hearing in your circles script, but I was talking about this with Chris the other day, and I kind of not got into it so much, but I had to give a wake up call to somebody who's kind of within the industry because they were griping about, nobody can just enjoy anything anymore. And, a lot of people put a lot of work into this stuff and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, and he's like, people are afraid they're going to lose their jobs now and shit because this was bombing so bad and some other things. And I said, well, maybe they should.
Yeah,
Like,
I have no,
and I kind of give him a wake up call as to why. Yeah.
like I have no problem with a lot of the cast and crews doing the things because they all think that they're doing the best thing that they can. The problem is that there's a big disconnect with regards to what you do to tell a successful story and how you make that as applicable and accessible to your audiences. This one had the key components that could make a really great story. It just didn't have the heart. It was set piece after set piece without much. It was trying to emulate something it clearly wasn't in its soul. I was actually just talking with someone earlier today about Temple of Doom and how for a long time prior to Crystal Skull, that was considered like one of the worst of the Indiana Jones films for a number
Last
of
Crusade
reasons.
was actually an apology for that. In a
Yeah,
way.
for a number of reasons. One, there wasn't really much of an arc going on for Indiana Jones. Two, I think there's like 30 to 60 seconds of footage that's missing from the proper cut. Like, what does Short Round do in that one scene when Willie is falling down towards the pit, and all of a sudden it cuts to he's kicked two guys over, and now he's appealing to Indy. He's like, there's something missing there. How did he get there? There's moments of that going on in the middle part, but it just didn't. Like everybody worked really hard on it, but it just doesn't feel like it's an authentic story for this. And in the other part too, the biggest misstep is they used Toby Jones. They introduced Toby Jones as a character that we have never seen before, and so we didn't feel anything, and we didn't understand or have any connection to Helena as a result of that. No proxy, if you will, and that's a big mistake. I think if they made Helena, one, not played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and two, the daughter of Marcus Brody, that would probably made more of a difference, more of an impact, more of a believable understanding of the relationship. But no, they dropped the ball. I because again, I read that interview with James Mangold. I started looking at some of the other aspects of what the actors were saying prior to filming, especially with Harrison Ford, and it all felt like, oh yeah, this could be a very, a different type of indie that's not a betrayal to the character, at least in principle, but it all comes down to the execution, right? Like if you want to tell a story of old Indiana Jones, you cannot have a romantic lead that isn't Marion at this point, right? But if you want to have a young female lead in there, what's the angle you go for? Well, either a student, pupil, or a family member of some sort. And they went with the family member who had nothing to learn, and that ruined a whole lot of it.
My biggest takeaway from the movie when I watched it yesterday was the lack of creativity. When they finally get to the tomb, right? Because they're looking for the Dial of Destiny, and I don't know how much we go into spoilers here, but they get to the tomb, right? And they're walking through hallways in this tomb, and they get to a bridge, and there's this rickety old bridge that's crossing a raging river. And then I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what's the big puzzle or the trap or the what are they going to face to cross this bridge? And then the cast just walks across the bridge. That's it. That's what they do. And then they go through this. That there's bugs on the wall, and there's no
Temple of Doom bugs,
there. Yeah, but nothing actually happens. Oh, they get them on their shirt, and Phoebe screams. Oh, that's it. When they pick up the dial from the actual grave, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, they're going to have to think about what's going to happen when they take the dial from the dead man's hands. And then they just take the dial from the dead man's hands and nothing happens. And it's like you could have turned this into a 30-40 minute segment of the film that kept the audience on the edge of its seats with every, it doesn't matter if they're overused classics like walls closing in on you, you know, like the dumpster scene in Star Wars, or the leap of faith.
Or having the entrance buried in because you triggered something and you're stuck inside.
Sure.
Now you got to
anything
solve a problem to get out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have built a whole piece around the movie that would have been excellent. And instead, it's literally just the cast walking through hallways until they pick up the dial and then shoot their way out. And where's the creativity? This is a wasted opportunity. I felt the movie was just full of that.
Yeah, well, that's why it's
creepy.
superficial. I mean, that's why it was a superficial knockoff of what Indiana Jones would be. Is that the stunt double?
It looks like
Yeah, it looks like it.
That's a little frightening.
that's terrifying. That middle one.
Especially the face they picked. Like,
Oh, that's him from like what?
Yeah,
is
I
it,
know.
The Jack Ryan movie.
one of them probably. If they ever had to take a cast of his face, I'm sure. But anyway, Waltman says we keep forgetting one comic book movie, Creepshow. Oh no, we talk about it from time to time.
Has anyone forgotten that?
As far as like really connecting it to comic books, oh yeah. I mean,
Kind of loosely connected. Yeah,
loosely
the old
connected,
comics,
and it's kind of presented like a comic book. That's kind of cool.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've talked about it in several. At least I have in several places before. In fact, I just got the 4K like a week and a half ago, or something like that, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it is now, a week ago. BA says, has anyone seen the show from the Harold Perino? Directed by Jack Bender, who directed majority of Lost. Russo brothers involved, nobody mentions it. Nah, I never heard of it. From is a dumb fucking name for a show, too.
Yeah, I've heard of From. I haven't seen it. I did see something that was quite funny, and I was remarkably shocked with funny. Do you guys remember back in the day the Joe Schmo show?
Vaguely.
Amazon did a variation of that, but it's jury duty, where they grabs one unsuspecting person.
Oh, is that what was the Joe Schmo? Which one was that one? That was the.
They take one person, they put him on a fake reality show with a bunch of actors, and he has no idea that.
Okay, was that the one that? Yeah, okay, I know. What
Ralph Garman hosted it.
Ralph Garman, that's what I was gonna say. Yep.
Yeah, and they did another one, a variation of that with a jury duty. They grabbed some person, brought him into a fake case. He had no idea he's on the jury, and James Marsden is involved playing himself, and it's decently funny. Actually, some good laughs in there. And the showrunner, Tom, you might appreciate this. So the actress that played Danny's mom in Karate Kid, her daughter is the showrunner for this reality piece, Cody something, and she, I think she did a fairly decent job given what they had to do.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they're only like 22-minute episodes, but it's on Amazon Freevee. It's got, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but let's just say that James Marsden is the reason this all went bad for a lot of people in the fictional story of things. And they make commentary about how you can't make certain movies today anymore.
Well, we're about to lose Andre, but I want him to hear the new song before he goes. So you got 2 minutes left, Andre?
Yeah, barely.
Don't sound too excited there. All right, here you go, guys.
Here we go. Oh yeah, tiny hands, tiny feet, tiny legs, but such a big heart. If I ever lost my little lover, I'd fall apart. You showed me a life I'll never forget, 'cause I'm in love. Yes, I'm in love with a midget. Such a little package, but a whole lot of love. She may look up at me, but she's an angel from above. I'm in love with a midget. I'm in love with a midget. Yeah, 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 with a midget. Yeah, yeah. besides, she knows just how to do me right. Even at half the height, yeah. Such a little package, but a whole lot of love. She may look up at me, but she's an angel from above. I'm in love with a midget, love with a midget, love with a midget, a whole lot of love. I'm in love. I'm in love with a midget. I'm in love with a midget. Love with a midget, yeah.
There you go, kids. There's the midget song. Finally, get off my back. Nobody,
Oh, that's
no
very
reactions.
That was excellent. Dude.
And with that, I unfortunately I have to leave, but I just want to wish you all a continued happy 4th of July.
Well, you too, sir. Even though you're not technically American, I know you love a lot of things American. So happy 4th to you too, and hope you have a
thank
great
you.
night. And thanks for stopping in.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, everyone.
Take
Right,
care.
Andre.
Hi, Andre.
And demonetized. Yep.
For an original song?
No, just because it's context. Yeah, there you go. Got her done. Got her done. What'd you guys think?
Tom, you were a superhero to me in that way, and with who blocked you today made you a superhero to me.
I'm sure a lot of people will block me. Oh,
No.
are you talking about the Ron Mars thing?
Yeah, Ron Mars, that
I
idiot.
barely even know who that motherfucker is.
I do know who he is. He's
Okay, well, just a second on that. I do
Kevin
know it
Wright.
needs to be remixed like Shum. I wrote that literally the hour before the show. I put that all together in like no
Wow.
time. Yeah.
There's some plus size midgets on there.
I don't
Looking a
care.
little thick.
Whatever, a little thick.
You've got a
is
problem, Tom.
It's funny.
It's
Come
a
on.
small
Like 'em
problem,
short and
but it's a
round?
problem.
It's funny. I've only slept with one midget my entire life. Okay, that's the joke. All right.
And you just want to do it again and again.
Not really. No, not with her anyway, especially. No, because she was just weird. It was just no. I'm not getting into it. Yeah. So what's the deal with Ron Mars? Who exactly is? I know him vaguely, but like he's saying this stupid shit. So I just was like, "Fuck you,
I
man."
didn't even see what you were responding to. I just saw
Okay,
you were
what he
blocked
had
by him.
said was okay. I don't even know if I can bring it up anymore because he blocked my ass.
He's a
But if I share it with
so-called
some of you
comic book
guys,
writer.
okay, I
He's
thought
a really
so.
lousy one.
But I'll share
Maybe
this
it's
with one of
dumb
you
shit.
guys, and maybe you guys can see what he wrote originally again. It only flashes for like 2 seconds when I maybe I can grab a screenshot.
I
Hang
believe
on.
he's the one that Gail Simone originally got pissed at
Yeah.
for the refrigerator, putting women in
I don't know.
refrigerators.
All right. Well, if one of you guys can bring up what he says here, maybe.
Okay, I'm not blocked by the,
screenshot it.
by the idiot, so I can look for it.
Yeah.
What was it?
Well, that's my retweet, and then you click on the original tweet, probably. I suppose.
Let's see.
Oh, I got it. I screenshot it.
Okay.
Sweet. Okay. Never mind. Okay, so his original tweet was, I just quickly grabbed it like my reflexes of a cat. Like Otis. Ron Mars said, I was curious as to why Lucasfilm was trending. Turns out it's mostly because the same dudes who were mad at Star Wars are now mad at Indiana Jones' perpetual petulant anger at things you loved when you were 12 not seem like a healthy way to go through life.
Oh, shut up.
And then I
Well, that's
responded to
him,
him,
right?
yeah, it's just a lot. It's just a bunch. It has to be just. All right, let me rephrase this. This is how I wrote it. Yeah, it has to just be a bunch of mad Lucasfilm bros. That's why the movie is tanking.
Yep.
Like,
Should
duh.
have Jake Skywalker there instead of Ray Palpatine, because really it's Jake
Right.
Jones and Jake Skywalker. That would be more accurate.
Definitely a cringe
Yeah.
tweet. Oh, we got Snowdub in the house.
Hey, well, this is the guy that, just was obsessed with writing Kyle Rayner instead of Hal Jordan, so he's an idiot anyway. I can't stand him.
Yeah.
Wrote a lot of lousy comments.
I No
In
skin
fact,
off my back.
He created the Kyle Rayner character, which personally I can't stand Kyle Rayner, so I know I'm biased against hating Ron Mars, but he's also just a lousy writer.
Coffin Nail says he's a douche. Yeah, I don't really even know what has he worked on before.
Oh, I mean, a lot of DC stuff, some Marvel, I think, but then a lot of Dark Horse. I mean, he's been around. He's been doing stuff for 30 something years, I guess. Been around that long. Just a hack writer, who, in my opinion, I've never read anything good by him really that I can think of. And he's always, but not just that. He almost Dan Slott level idiocy on Twitter. I'm proud to be blocked by Dan Slott. He's another Dan Slott. I mean, he's a lot like him.
All right.
Yeah. I know some of you know who Dan Slott is. I know, Script, you know who Dan Slott is.
Yeah, I know who Dan Slott is.
I know the name. I'm trying to remember.
I try not to talk about Dan Slott.
I know he's come up before, and
he wrote some of the stories that Paul Chatto likes with regards to She-Hulk. I was about to say
that's right. That's where the name came up. Yeah,
some old stuff I used to like. Slott did, but see, he's put this way. I never corresponded with him, and I'm blocked. And I don't know. I know like 30 other people that are blocked by him that never even talked to him. Just so he uses block.
Yeah, on a recommendation, I took a look at the Spider-Man Renew Your Vows story that he wrote, and I thought it was pretty horrible.
Yeah, he is terrible. And he's again, that's one thing. I wouldn't beat up on the guy for just not writing things I don't like, but the way he conducts himself on out there is just despicable. He's real rotten.
He reminds me of like a failed stand-up comic that went into journalism and failed there and decided to go into comic book writing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best way I can put it. It's just, it boggles my mind because he can tell some good jokes, but it just doesn't always feel like it's appropriate within the context that he's setting up.
And like Terry says, he wrote some garbage Spider-Man. Oh man, what he did to Spider-Man. Boy.
All right, we got going back to that original member chat. I didn't actually read it correctly. He sent me another article, Grand Admiral Adam did, about how The Force Awakens was the most expensive movie ever made at over $500 million. They're finding out now.
Wow!
According to recent filings,
that's pretty close to Rise of Skywalker too.
Yeah.
Interesting how both films directed by J.J. Abrams coming up to $500 million and
$500 million each. Yeah. And then we've got oh crap, I forgot to get the name on this. It's sorry about that, Big Daddy. Big Daddy MRI sent in a member chat and says, a great time is always had when you're driving. Thanks for all you do. Hail mods, chat, and panel. Well, thank you, even though I'm half out of it. I appreciate that. But yeah, so it's 4th of July. I didn't really have much planned, other than the song, I guess. Which was really last minute. But yeah, so what's going on in your world, Script Doctor, that you actually can talk about?
I do know some screenwriters are very bewildered by this weekend's poor box office. It was funny after I did a little brief live stream this morning / afternoon. I went on a fun Zoom call with some screenwriters, and it was a very divided session because some were trying to argue that Dial of Destiny was like the best Indiana Jones film they had seen after Raiders. And
for fuck's sake!
All they could say is that it was fun and made them happy and whatever, but they couldn't pinpoint. They couldn't, by comparison, pinpoint their favorite moments or scenes of what they liked about it.
So these would be all the fuckers that would have blocked me on Twitter the other day when I started asking those kind of questions.
But regardless of that, the way that you describe how much you love a movie, usually you recreate scenes and moments and explore the feelings and emotions of that. When we were trying to get them to do that because we genuinely wanted to understand what they liked about the film, they couldn't articulate it, which basically tells me that they're just they're in battered wife syndrome mode. they liked that opening train sequence, even though it's really derivative. They liked the Marion cameo at the end. They did do one thing, and I actually saw this scene because it was sent to me. The moment where Indiana Jones realizes about the continental drift and you're setting up that, oh, things aren't going to be where you're targeting for. That was actually a good scene because it's a revelation.
Except it doesn't matter.
Except they completely throw it away. They set up this great mystery of like, oh, where they're going to go, but then they throw it away, and then you realize it was always meant to take you here. And it's like Archimedes is legendary and brilliant, but I don't know if they're good enough to really understand that point of things, because it's not just continental drift. Earth's orbit isn't the same. Is not 100% the same. It changes very, very slightly, and I think it would change enough over 2,000 years for wherever these portals are not going to be in the same spot that you think they are 2,000 years later. There's nothing for him to pinpoint to say that, yes, this is where it is in space-time all the time. The lots of thrown off things there.
The whole thing was fucking stupid.
But yeah, unfortunately they couldn't articulate anything, and I got more information about the film because I haven't seen it yet. But it looks like they even had the set pieces. So in the Indiana Jones, when they have their set piece, it's not just a set piece as a set piece. Things are happening. There's back and forth, tug of war, so to speak. And they're not as long as you think they are. Only a couple of minutes. But because it's a very momentum-driven franchise.
The tank one's probably one of the longest sequences we've ever had, besides the stupid monkey one in Crystal Skull, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. But other than that, like they go from different, set piece to set piece to set piece. Each one is a new challenge, new obstacles, and what have you. But my understanding is that the motorcycle / car chase, it was just that. That's what it was for like 25 minutes. It was just they're chasing after it, and there's not much obstacles. They're not in different scenery. They're kind of just driving around in circles, or upstairs or downstairs, or miraculously cutting off in different directions and coming back up to catch up to the specific car. Like it was all
everything in the movie was like that.
What was the point of the moon landing being a background setting of the opening act?
None.
It was just to tell you what time it was.
Yeah.
No, and that's what I said. The problem with this movie, unlike the first three movies and similar to Crystal Skull, though, is that this movie is primarily driven completely by the MacGuffin, right? To where, like, even though, you talked about earlier, Temple of Doom is the least liked, or at least it was before Crystal Skull. Well, funnily enough, that's the one that's the least driven by its MacGuffin. The other two are a little bit more so, but they're still driven by other means in between there. Like, Indy's more motivated by saving Marion and stuff like that in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and same thing with his father and
he's there to save his dad. Yeah. In part 1 and 3, he's there to save the girl and save his father. In part 2, he's like, oh, we'll save the children.
We got to save the children. Yeah.
But we're dragging Willie with us for reasons.
Yeah. That's the only part that doesn't make sense in that movie. He did drag her
into that by accident, and then she just ended up with him.
Yeah. And she's just there, and she's kind of like a red herring.
It kind of works because that kind of thing did happen in some of those serials sometimes. So I overlook it.
They just and I like the fact, like, I mean, when Short Round and Indy are being crushed by that that ceiling thing, using Willie to come in and have to deal with all that gross stuff,
we are
out,
going
works.
to die.
Yeah, I mean, look, you get people talk about how annoying she is and stuff. I mean, you might be a little annoyed too if some joker dragged you out of your life and all over all these dangers and shit when she didn't. She didn't ask
she's
for
very
that stuff.
much a woman of that era. Like, she plays it because, like, you got to remember, like,
she was supposed to be annoying. Yeah,
and I get it. She's annoying. That's a personal thing on an actor level, whether you like her or not. I'm not a big fan of her. She's probably my least favorite of all the indie ladies in all the movies.
You want to know why? And I've been able to pinpoint this. So there's a scene where Indiana Jones is fighting the big guy on the conveyor belt, and she's on the ground and she's miming the fighting very like a child, like a really young, like a 4-year-old, just swinging those fists.
Well, it's because she is a narcissistic little shit.
And it's just the most unappealing thing to see.
Yeah, she's just been through some pretty crazy stuff.
I mean, she does it, like, as for an actor, she does it well, but it's like, it's really like, no, it's just that's not how it works.
Well, compared to Phoebe, she's the greatest character that ever written.
There were two moments that struck me with her in the movie. The first one was when they're at the diner together, and she's trying to sell Indy on going on this adventure, and she says, I could be, and then she pauses, and instead of saying you, she says famous. And then there was the other scene when they're showing her as a child, and she's looking longingly at Indy's hat like she wants it. She wants to wear it, but then she takes it and gives it to him in the car, passes it off again.
Short
I
round.
think that was in a
allowed to
reshoot.
wear Indy's hat.
You know what? And
Yeah.
that's the thing I said too, and I haven't got a chance to really talk to you much about this script since the movie's come out, but I said this script could have been fixed had it been Short Round instead of her. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's kind of
Oh, yeah,
set up
yes.
in
Big
that
time.
way.
I mean, like in I think I don't know if it's 100% canon, but I do think that after Temple of Doom, Short Round goes to boarding school in the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I said you
And-
could even make that part of the story because, like I said, you could have him show up. He wants whatever it was they were after. Please don't make it the Dial of Destiny. Just make it whatever. I don't give a fuck. And he's on the same motivation. He's going to sell it because remember, he was always about fortune and glory when he was a little kid talking about it. And he also harbors just a tad bit of resentment to Indy for dumping him off. But through having Toby as his little sidekick, he learns that it's not the greatest idea to have a little kid jet setting with you around the world. You can just have Toby get shot in the arm or break a leg or something like that at some point. And he realizes, oh, this is dangerous. That's why Indiana Jones did that,
Well,
and now,
especially
they have like a father
yeah.
bonding moment and shit like that and all that stuff. Yeah.
when that scene in the Club Obi-Wan where his old buddy tries to help him gets killed there, this, young who was I follow you to many adventures, Indy,
Yeah.
So he's probably that
that's
also was part of his motivation. You can't let this kid run around with you.
Yeah, you don't even need Toby for that. You just have that point. It's like, listen, Short Round, our friend.
No,
died.
but it's there. I mean, you can have that. Like,
You don't need
Toby
Toby
is
at all.
his
He's-
friend. No, I would get rid of Toby. You're right. But
I would
he
actually
insist
censor it
on
more.
Yeah.
I would actually, like, again, if this is gonna, I mean, truthfully, if you wanted to actually line it up with Harrison's actual age, this movie should have taken place in 79, not 69.
Oh yeah, we've talked
Yeah,
about
that
that
was a little
before.
weird.
Then,
Yeah.
then he really would have been 80.
Because
Then you
what I
coulda
would
had
have done, I would have
They're showing
played
a movie
into.
called Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it's based on his adventure.
No, I wouldn't do that because that's just silly. But what I would do is, the hostage, the U.S. hostage situation in Iran that happened at that point. You could do something that's a story that parallels to that, where they're in that situation, and Short Round is part of maybe the CIA trying to get people out, or what have you. You could do
That
anything
too.
that you want, in that line that can orbit a little bit around some history, but you don't necessarily have to do it, because that was what was the charm with the original trilogy, is that it didn't try to orbit around a significant thing that was happening at that point, aside from the lead up to the Second World War.
And that's what I was saying was also important about the relics, right? Even though the Ark is what sets everything in motion in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indy becomes more concerned with Marion, right? And then the same thing with Last Crusade. Even though the Holy Grail is what they're after, Indy's
Trying
actual
to save his father.
he's more into trying to save his father. In that one, he's even more motivated in the beginning than he was with the Ark. The Ark was the motivation first. But here it was like, okay, my dad's kidnapped. What the fuck's going on? I want to find out where my dad's at and blah, blah, blah. Then the Ark becomes more of the focal point. But yeah, with the Crystal Skull in this movie, especially, it's all about that. We don't care about who she is. There's not, and that's why I don't understand why they didn't they could have even made her Marcus's granddaughter, and it made no sense. Cause it's like, why are you creating this character that nobody knows or cares about? And you give us this 20-minute, cut scene from a video game in the beginning with him.
And then other flashbacks, which is weird because, again, Indiana Jones doesn't do flashbacks. They start at a period and then they'll time jump to present. Like that's what I really enjoyed with The Last Crusade, is that, it's Utah, 1912. Okay, so this is what we're watching now. This is the focus point of the story. And then it jumps to 38. And you're like, okay, so it's telling stuff actively in the presence for the audience. We're following it through. It's not, let's do the 1938 stuff. Then we'll flash back to the sequence in 1912, and then we'll come back to here. They did that literally in the Dial of Destiny.
Right.
Yep.
And it doesn't feel authentic to Indiana Jones. And it's actually kind of a similar mistake that was made in the Rise of the Sith, or Revenge of the Sith, sorry, where we actually see the Force vision to a degree of what Anakin is seeing. Like, we shouldn't be seeing that. That's not Star Wars. They don't do stuff like that in Star Wars. So
yeah, yep. Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. It's
sad. It is very sad that they did this to this movie, but I didn't really want to spend most of the 4th of July talking about this.
No worries.
No, it's just, it's there's not much to look forward to for the rest of the year either, but I mean, we've got a few things, so. But yeah. Let's see here. Did we get any membership? Big Daddy MRI gifted 5 Midnight's Edge After Dark memberships. Thank you so much. Looks like IUDFR, Tiger Valley, Max Mercer, Aaron Ratliff, and Cathy on the Hukulia. Okulu. I don't know what that is. But you got one, Kathy. So there you go. Congratulations, guys. And thank you for being here. I'm surprised to see 500 of you hanging out. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Almost half of you haven't yet. I don't know if there's going to be anything after this tonight, if anybody's going live, but, just 4th of July, I thought we'd hang out here and send the link out to a few people. And we don't know if anybody will bop in yet, but I don't know if I'm going to drag this out too much longer than I already have. So,
So people are watching fireworks, I guess. You never know.
It's getting there. It's not even near dark here, but they've been doing fireworks almost every night here for the last fucking week.
Oh, yeah.
It's like crazy. Yeah. I don't think it's the city every time. I think it's just people around. But yeah.
I can tell you what people are not doing today, though. They're not going to see
Indiana Jones, evidently.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm seeing that some theaters are selling out with that. What is that? Jim Caviezel movie?
Oh, yeah.
Sound of Silence or something of that nature.
I think that whatever one that I think Mikey went to see.
Mikey,
it's it's based off of a real story of a army
child trafficking deal or something.
Stopping child trafficking. Or
all right.
Child trafficking.
Yeah, and I guess it's selling out in some places.
Good. I hope it destroys
Sound of Freedom. That's
the
Sound of Freedom. That's it. Yep.
Yeah, Dial of Dysentery.
Yeah.
Hope it destroys it.
See, now the Sound of Freedom actually sounds like an actual Indiana Jones title. And like the relic would be something sound related. You know what I mean? Like a musical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that actually sounds like the Dial of Destiny and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull are just too on the fucking nose. And I've said that from the start. Because Raiders of the Lost Ark, a little bit on the nose, but not completely, right? It can be taken a few different ways. Temple of Doom is a perfect, old serial title. Last Crusade, perfect title for that movie. Yeah. It ties in with the whole Christian Crusades, and it's their last.
But when Lost Ark came out, though, dude, how many people knew about the Ark of the Covenant? Most people probably thought they were talking about Noah's Ark.
Noah's Ark, exactly. Yeah.
When I was a kid, when I went and saw the movie like a zillion times, I kept reading about it in Starlog. But at first, when I started reading about it, because I couldn't wait to go see it, I was like, "Is it Noah's? What's the Lost Ark? Noah's Ark, I guess, right?"
You know what? That's something that Indy hasn't found yet, though.
Maybe that's next. Real Indy would. Real deal Indy would.
I think one of the things staples that makes an Indiana Jones movie coming in the right direction is that you don't 100% know what the specific item they're searching for is, because that's what you get with the vaguity of the arc, because there's many different historical arcs.
Yeah.
And so it leaves it a little bit older. And also, like when you raid an arc, what does that mean to raid an arc, right? Usually, it's a little vague, but it makes sense once you understand what it is they're after. That you get that revelation moment. When it comes to like the Temple of Doom, the temple is really just the place where the sacrifices are done, but they're after one of the Shankara stones, because and the children, that's what's going to be there. It's not Indiana Jones, the Legend of Shankara.
Exactly.
And then the Last Crusade is based off the fact that the Holy Grail was found and hidden during the Crusades.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Look at that. It's orange.
Gary sent that too. I guess that's the actual color of them.
Probably is when they don't throw dirt
and actually
on
it's cool. And not only that, it's that, or they had two different versions, and I'll show you why here.
Well, one
they probably had.
Right?
Yep, I was just gonna say you can kind of light it up, and I'll show you here. I just do it with my phone.
Bolaram,
I get my phone to work with me here.
Bolaram. Well, I hate to tell you this, folks, but King of the Crystal Skull. I mean, you can say what you want about the Crystal Numbskull. And watching it now, I watched it the other night. And there's a lot of things wrong with it, but at least it felt like a
better than this shit, ain't it? Well, I was thinking about watching it again.
The first half is actually fine to a degree. The first half is fine to a degree. It's just
except for the refrigerator. Yeah. Still, there's a lot of. The point is, it feels like an Indiana Jones film. Flawed, sure. A lot of dumb shit, sure. Things that I understand. A lot of people hate it.
Well, the only thing that bothered me was the aliens, and not only that, you had an alien in the beginning of the movie and a completely different alien at the end of the movie.
All I'm saying is, without even saying good or bad, I'm saying that's an Indiana. Like, it's not, for example,
no, you're right.
Indiana Jones movie. I could take a bad Superman movie, a bad Batman movie, bad Spider-Man. It's still that's a Spider-Man movie. It sucked, but
I have two. My point is this. And we got Snowdub in the house. How you doing, Snowdub?
Hey, kids. Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July. No, my only two main complaints with Crystal Skull, other than some of the, just obvious batshit crazy complaints that everybody has, are just this. It could have been a good movie if you would have left the aliens out of it and it just been like the Lost City of Atlantis or something like that.
Right.
And the aliens were fine in the beginning of the movie. The little nod to Area 51, that was fine. Like
Yeah, that
I
was
didn't
actually a
mind
good
that
action
so
sequence.
much.
That was an
Yeah.
actually really good action
But
sequence
leave
at
the
beginning.
aliens there. Just have them be like a little nod. Like, are they real? Are they fake? What was the deal there with that? You know, that whole thing. Like, you kind of just leave it ambiguous. And then the other thing I hated was Mac.
Yeah.
He was one of the worst like, why is he here?
Yeah.
He doesn't know
Yeah,
which
Mac wasn't
side he's
good.
on half the time. He's so fucking confused that the audience just starts to hate him after a while. Like, I got to the point where like we're about 2 seconds from him flipping sides again. Like, I actually
Agreed.
compared him to, like I said, he's almost as bad a character as Jar Jar Binks at that time. I said he is definitely the Jar Jar Binks here, but not only
That's
that, he's
pretty high,
useless.
but yeah, that's up there.
He
but
is
yeah, I
fucking
understand.
useless.
Right. But still, my whole point is that whether you like the movie, hate the movie, it's an Indiana Jones film, a flawed one for sure. But you watch it, at no time do you want to, stick your head in a bucket of vipers. At no time you want to jump off of something. You just go, all right, you judge it on its own merits, but it never feels like it's trying to depress you into the ground like this garbage.
Oh no, the stuff with Indy is fun, right?
It's
like, I
so
mean, yeah,
fun.
it's a little too kiddie in some points. I'm not going to lie about that, but like,
Yeah.
I like the intro. I
Yeah, but
liked
it's
what's her
still fun.
face is the over the top bad guy.
Yeah,
The
Kate
Russian
Blanchett,
chick,
sure.
Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett,
yeah,
It
yeah,
has all
she
the
was
things that
fine.
Indiana Jones movie has.
Yeah, the quicksand scene was fun.
I actually got up and walked out of the theater
Did
during
ya?
Crystal Skull. Yeah.
Did you? I stayed through the whole thing, but there wasn't many people there. It was semi packed, but
Oh, and
It
I
was
saw
It was the
packed
monkey
audience.
scene that did it for me.
I saw it at a midnight showing though.
The monkeys. Yeah, again, like I said, it had
I
stupid shit in it. It had stupid shit. That's fine.
I had to
Stupid
cash it in
shit
right
it.
there. I was just like, nope.
If I was gonna walk out, it would have been during the swirling scene at the end. But at that point, it's like, what the fuck's the point of walking out now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The monkeys were pretty silly.
Yeah, there's certain aspects to Crystal Skull that that were mistakes repeated from Temple of Doom. Like, for instance, the water boat going through the trees and then landing into the river. It reminded me too
Those
much
are called
of the
ducks.
inflatable in Temple of Doom.
I actually have a special spot for that because those are the World War II ducks, and we have a thing here in the Dells where you can still go ride those in the Dells. So like I knew what they were right away.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah.
Oh, cool.
But other than that, it was still like, you're right though, script. It still had that element of, oh, we're showing you things we've seen before. It didn't really give us anything new for Indy and Crystal Skull.
My whole point here, though, is not to say it's good, bad, or to criticize, because it's very easy to criticize. I'm saying I watch it and I don't want to jump off a building. It doesn't make me hate Indiana Jones. I say it's a messed up movie. It doesn't. It makes me feel like an Indiana Jones movie through and through with a great soundtrack and stuff. And I walk out. Then you could criticize it and say it sucks, or walk out early like Snowdub did. Dial of Destiny. I never thought I was going to walk out at all. I thought I was going to go into a coma. I mean, it's just.
Well, that's the argument I got into.
Trash. It's horrible.
It's like, as bad as Crystal Skull is, you are 100% correct. At least there's some fun in there. At least they're trying to have fun. At least it's not trying to depress you. It's not about Indy getting old so much as it is Indy discovering he has a kid, you know, and going on this adventure and whatnot like that.
Trying to entertain you, and it may fail. But this movie is not trying to entertain. I'm not sure what they're trying to do, but it doesn't want you to walk out happy. You walk out going, "Oh my God, I feel miserable for a character that I've loved for a long time."
No, I think it's the result of several reshoots and rewrites
and missing the point of like getting your groove back even in your old age type of thing. Like that's one of the things they really didn't nail well. Because again, characters have to start in one place and end up in another place. It's okay to have them in a bad position, even though it is derivative. But if you have them in conflict with that, meaning that they want to do the stuff, but they just feel like the world is pushing against them and they can't. But that's your very Luke Skywalker moment, right? Luke Skywalker wants to join the academy, but his uncle and aunt are saying, no, you can't. And he's stuck on a planet that doesn't have much access to what's going on in the rest of the galaxy. You can empathize with that. Indiana Jones could be like, if he's forced retirement and he doesn't want to retire, then you have something that's in good conflict. Here, it feels like, oh yeah, he's fine with retiring.
Well, he's at the bottom of a bottle, right? Like that's the whole point. And that's what I said before. That's the dumbest part of this whole movie. First of all, they didn't have to kill Mutt because they're only doing it just to give him this, oh, woe is me shit and break him and marrying up, just like they did with Ben in The Force Awakens. And I said, really, it would have made more sense to have them together and have her basically be in the Adrian role this time. And that's what I'm saying. Script is like, You have her be like, no, we're retired. You don't need to be going on adventures. And he's just like, I just want to get out. I'm sick of this. I don't want to retire. And then, like you said, we were talking before, Short Round shows up. She comes in the room, sees his whip, hat, and jacket gone, yells, Indy, as it cuts to the fucking map. Dun, 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 dun. And then you don't see her again until the end of the movie.
You know what I'd probably do that'd be really kind of funny and very appropriate with Indiana Jones? You start it with an extreme close-up of what looks like it to be a giant saw, and it's coming down. And then you got a close-up of Indiana Jones' old face,
Right.
He's freaking out. And then you pull out, and it's basically the doctor's cutting a leg cast off of him because he broke his leg a year ago. Because, he's a poor old, on an adventure. And Miriam's just there, like, shaking her head, like, you're not young anymore. You got to slow down. I mean, we have.
Look what happened with you just trying to paint the house. And then you're trying to go on an adventure.
And now you want to go back to like Istanbul and find something.
I gotta go, Mary.
I noticed how much Harrison Ford was limping in this movie. And when I saw that, I figured maybe it's the Harrison Ford is old and maybe he's actually limping. He's not acting it. I don't know. But I can believe that a character like Indiana Jones, after everything he's been through, has got to be pretty busted up by this age. And I don't mind if that's part of the plot. If his body is busted up, but he's finding ways to still be awesome,
Well, that was kind of what Crystal Skull was, right? Like he just misses here and there. That's what he says, like when he falls in the Jeep.
Wasn't Crystal Skull set up for Shia LaBeouf to kind of pass the torch type of thing? Because he was at the peak of his career at that point.
He even has a little hint of a theme in the John Williams score.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I honestly was kind of shocked when they literally cut him out completely. I mean, it's not like he's been completely, ostracized from Hollywood, although script may know better. But I figured they at least bring him in for a cameo or something like that. When I heard they killed him off.
Isn't Ravenwood his last name anyway? So Mutt Ravenwood wouldn't be a bad name. It sounds pretty.
Williams.
Oh, is it Williams? That's right. I couldn't remember why did she fucking name him Williams? Yeah.
Although it was his his real father.
That's her widowed. That's Marion's widowed husband.
Yeah, Marion's widow.
That's right. Yeah.
Who she married afterwards, but Mutt's name on his birth certificate is Henry Jones III. So he.
And I could see him. I could see him like making up the difference and taking the Ravenwood name though. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We always, if anything, this is one of the few times I would say a prequel would have been nice just to see some adventures with Abner Ravenwood actually.
Abner's kind of described more like how Toby Jones's character was.
Well, isn't he supposed to be the guy that gave him the hat in the beginning of Last Crusade? I thought that was him.
That was Forrestal.
That was who?
I always thought it was Forrestal, but it's not. They never named him. But
I could have sworn that was supposed to be Abner Ravenwood.
In that scene, they call someone Garth, and it looks like they're talking to the guy who's got the hat, who's written as Fedora in
right. Well,
in the script.
I always took
Ravenwood
that was
trained Indy, so it couldn't be that much of a putz.
Well, that's what I was saying. I always took it that was the guy you looked up to, and that's where, I was.
That is one.
Always thought that my head canon anyway. That's the way it always was.
Ravenwood was also a professor, an archaeologist. He wasn't a grave robber. This guy worked for Coronado Industries and whatnot. But no, Ravenwood was a very intellectual person who did. Well, his adventures were not as intense as Indiana Jones's.
No,
and that's why he goes missing and is presumed dead in the first one. Is because he's not the same type of academic or adventure that Indiana Jones is. He's far more academic, and that's where the differences are. And that's I think why Marion was so enraptured with Indiana Jones, is because he was very smart like her father, but he was also more adventurous than her father.
Yeah,
and that's where it was in there. Abner Ravenwood was not that Fedora guy, although I think in headcanon that would have been very fun and ironic. But
that's who I always thought that was.
I always wanted him to be Forrestal.
Yeah.
Because I always saw it as like his dad wasn't what he wanted to be. He wanted to be that guy instead. And that was the guy he followed around, married his daughter. Or not married, but eventually married. But you know what I mean?
Too,
that was always the way it worked in my head. That's the person he always wanted to be. I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, technically, he wanted to be the one guy that beat him for the first time in his life as a 13-year-old boy.
I could have swore somebody had said it somewhere, though. That's why it was always in my head. I wouldn't have just put it there, though. That's the thing that's weird. Maybe somebody did. It's very plausible. But I watch like a lot of interviews and stuff like that. So I would in my mind, either George or Steven would have said it possibly, but maybe not.
George would have said he's nobody. He's nothing.
No, George would never make anybody nobody. Only Ryan Johnson would do something stupid like
Williams
that.
Johnson, yeah.
Well, the thing is that he takes a nobody and makes it literally.
He's
nobody,
just named
as opposed to-
Fedora. That's
yeah.
what he's
His name,
credited
Fedora.
at. Yep.
Mr. Fedora. Dr. Fedora.
Yeah. A good work for hire type of guy. Nothing wrong with that. Good
Mercenary.
character, and I like the fact that it bleeds over into the two aspects of archaeology: the grave robbers versus the actual archaeologist. Grave robbers are far more risky, far more adventurous, and the archaeologists are far more delicate and respectful of the history. Indiana Jones is basically has all the respect and delicate nature, but when push comes to shove, he becomes the adventurous guy because you have to in order if you want to survive. And he's the type of guy that, which I think is kind of funny. He gets into these crazy adventures, these crazy plots from these other less reputable people. And unfortunately, he is in the position where he can't really talk about it to anyone. Like the whole world does not know Indiana Jones does what Indiana Jones does. They know him as a really well-acclaimed teacher who has found some very impressive.
See, and that's something that I think they kind of lost along the way that was kind of set up in the first film, where it is kind of like a superhero double identity, 007 kind of thing in a weird way, but then they kind of lost it with Temple of Doom and Last Crusade.
Well, Temple of Doom just didn't put him in the position where he is in his teacher's role.
That's true.
No.
I mean, it just never really shows that other side of him. But yeah, it just kind of, it felt like it fell to the wayside. Like it was always meant to be a part of the plan. Like this is what he does on the weekends kind of thing.
Well, they even comment on it. Willie Scott, says, I thought archaeologists was funny little men running around the world looking for their mummies.
Yeah.
Later she says she couldn't believe that this guy's an archaeologist. They even commented on it later in the film. Yeah.
Well, she's definitely showing off how uneducated a lot of women were back then. I'm just saying.
Tom.
Well, it's true.
I kind of want to see some of the missing footage of that film and see if they can if it wasn't owned by Disney, I'd be like, I want a proper recut of Temple of Doom for some of the missing parts put back in there to make it more.
I never even noticed some of that until you said it. Now I probably will if I watch it. But are you also one of those? Yeah. Okay, here's something I want to debate with people, because this is one of the ones that pisses me off more than anything, is these people who try to insist that Raiders of the Lost Ark would have went the same way had Indiana Jones not been a part of it.
No.
And I think that's a load of crap.
I don't think they would have found it.
That's what I keep saying. I said, first of all, they follow him to Marion, right? Like that's the whole thing. He realizes, oh shit, I've been set up.
Followed him to Marion, right?
Yeah, he was set up to go find the rest of to go find the amulet, and they only have half the amulet. So they would have been digging forever. The war could have been done by the time they fucking found it.
Well, here's the thing. They might have had the full amulet because if Indiana wasn't there to save Marion, she would have
got it. Yeah, they would have got it.
They would have had it all. They probably would.
They wouldn't even know. That's the argument I make. How do they even know to go to her unless they're following Indy? That's what I always say, and that's where people are like, oh, they know where it's at. Well, like, how do you know they know? They don't show up till after Indy is there. And I think there's that moment where he realized, oh shit, I was set up and they followed me here.
Well,
like that was the whole fucking thing.
Where do we get the tip off that they're following Indy? Because essentially what Indiana Jones is doing is he's saying, well, where was Abner last seen? In Nepal? So that's where they're going. And he's going there expecting to look for Abner.
But Indy's the only one who knows that she has the amulet. That's my point.
They dropped the ball, guys. They could have brought in Tom Selleck and had him play like this opposing,
well, he was supposed to play.
Right, and have them like dueling to get it back. They totally dropped the ball there. They could have been like
to get it back.
Lifelong.
You're missing the logic of that. Oh, we had Abner, we didn't know where it was, we killed him. Who would probably have it next? Logically, a member of his family that still lives, and then that's where they were. It's basically two different people at two different starting points coming to the same conclusion.
But my point
that's
was
what the story is setting up physically in the movie.
Because
again, there's no scene where Indy is walking towards a plane, and then they're like, "There's a Nazi behind him,"
That's what I was trying to remember. Wasn't there anybody following him at all? Because when he gets the diary in the mail, or not the diary, he gets something else. In the mail.
There's nothing in the mail and the Raiders.
What sends him? Marcus says something to him.
The U.S. government sends him.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so if the government sends him, that doesn't mean that necessarily.
Because they intercepted a transmission with.
I gotta watch the movie again.
Yeah. Well, don't
Tom
don't
Selleck's
watch.
still acting, isn't he? He's still
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
God, they dropped the ball on that one.
He's just not
Just-
running as frequently as Harrison Ford.
Just don't watch
Sure.
Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Just watch Raiders of the
See,
Lost
that's
Ark.
my problem with Last Crusade and Raiders is I get the two kind of crossed over because they're so much alike.
hmm
I mean, I like Last
similar.
Crusade, but it's pretty much.
Not only
Raiders.
that, if you ever watch The Phantom, it's directed to look a lot like an Indiana Jones film, and there are
Simon
some
Windsor.
things where people are getting on a plane and then they're being followed by,
Nah.
like Christy Swanson gets on like a plane and then they're being followed by the spies, and
Okay, jumping ahead.
and then Catherine Zeta-Jones captures them.
Yeah, I think Tom Selleck would have been a great rival. You know, the two of them, like, you know, kind of fighting back and forth, and you know, Indiana Jones brings him up as, me and this guy have been, you know, competing for years, you know, something like that. That I would have went and seen that just for that, and to see Tom Selleck kind of play that role that was originally his, if it wasn't for him being signed on to Magnum PI.
Yeah.
Yep.
At least you would have got some of the nostalgia fans back on that one.
True.
So, oh well. Strong female leads.
Yes, like Feeblebag, Waller, Bribble, Bridges, or whatever.
I'm sitting here watching Raiders in the background.
I just rewatched them all again the other day, and
I'm just trying to see because I'm trying to
Right
figure
now.
this all out how it goes here.
What are you looking for? I can tell you. But
He's
right there
talking to
in a second.
Marcus, getting his shit together. He gets on the plane.
Goes to
Yep.
Nepal.
I'm trying to see the part in between here. Well, because there's some shady looking dudes getting on the plane with him there. But
Yes, Tot. Played by
yeah, it
Ron-
is the
Ron
Russian dude
Baker.
or the fucking
dude.
dude's on the plane with
The
him.
Nazi dude. Yeah, that
Yes, I told you that. I knew it. He followed him there. That's what I said. I'm not
Yeah.
stupid. I've seen this movie a million fucking times. I even seen the fucking monkey wiener. I knew he followed him. That's my point. They followed him there because they didn't know where else
Right.
to go.
So, yes, indeed, it's true.
I just watched the shot where the Nazi dude got on the plane with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's no, that's to your point. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. And then at the end, of course, we all know if it wasn't for him, then they wouldn't have got the fucking arc anyway.
He
That's
wouldn't
the
got the
other-
arc because he survived it when they did. And then
Sorry,
he brought it
guys.
back.
I know there's some chats here. I was reading I was watching the fucking movie in the background on Voodoo. Nikki D says, "Will Barbie make more money than MI7 in the box office?" This is a good question, Nikki D, and I think it's going to be a close call here. It all depends on how good Barbie is. We've heard good things about Mission Impossible, but if Barbie has really good word of mouth, it could be a tough show, tight fight at the box office. Is what I was trying to say. Jesus, my stutter's coming in. So yeah, what do you guys think?
I think Tom Cruise is running high off Top Gun 2, and I think that alone is going to get some butts in the seats, just because people are kind of riding, you know, the Tom Cruise train again. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is back. He's making great movies again, and he really is one of our last true Hollywood stars that we have. And I think just because of his name alone will kind of put them over the edge on Barbie. Although, who knows? You know, the girls could really love this movie, and it could catch like wildfire.
I'm
Yeah,
thinking
I'm
that's
ki-
going to be
yeah.
the case. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm
Cece.
kind of in that mode. I'd be surprised if MI7 doesn't get to $1 billion, personally. But if Barbie gets a lot of the girlfriends taking their boyfriends to the movie, it could really give that a lot of legs to just keep going.
Well, not just that. I see groups of girls going to see this movie.
Oh
together.
yeah, yeah.
I think this is going to be one of the first.
Yeah.
This has a better chance of actually making Margot Robbie an actual star compared to all the other things that she's done it. Because this is kind of like her, like she was overshadowed by Allison Janney in I, Tonya, which was a smaller film. This is her first big leading role. And
she's not surrounded by a bunch of people like Suicide Squad. Yeah.
yeah, and the talent that is with her is definitely at a threshold where they're not going to overshadow her a little bit. Maybe Will Ferrell might steal some scenes because he's in this movie, but Ryan Gosling I don't think is going to be a huge distraction.
I think
from
he's a
whatever
good
performance.
counter to her in this.
Yeah, I
he
think
looks
he's a
like
good
he's going to
counter.
be.
So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
The trailer is selling me, and it's not even for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, so
When
that
they make
tells you
his
something.
Ken doll, are they going to add the wandering eye, or You know, leave him straight.
Oh man, Clobby, what do you think?
I think it's highly unlikely that it will best, as much as I'm not a Tom Cruise fan, that it will best him. But it would take an absolute phenomenon. It needs to be a phenomenon of word of mouth, and it has to get nothing negative for it. In other words, everyone just saying it's a good, fun movie that women and girls can go see over and over again. It's gonna have it'll need a lot of repeat business for that, and it can't be anything controversial like we keep hearing about, maybe it being woke or anything like that.
Well,
anything like that will kill it.
I will tell you this, Clobby, because I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but like Kate McKinnon's comments did cause a little bit of a stir.
Yeah,
but I would say mostly probably in our communities, I would say, but it was already addressed. And they said they don't know what the fuck she's talking about, basically, in so many words. They're like, it's not a feminist movie, it's just a movie.
It's a shot to be good. Well, it makes more than
the
question is what it makes more than Tom.
Well, here's the thing: it's sitting at opening somewhere between $80 and $100 million right now, and that could go up. That's one of the few movies where, I mean, it's not a tested IP as far as like having a bunch of movies in the theaters or anything like that.
Mostly straight to DVD, home video.
Right.
Yep.
So if this thing actually does manage to break that $80 million range into the $100 million range domestically, I think it could end up doing pretty well when it's all said and done. Now, will it do as well as Mission Impossible? Doubtful. But when it comes to like expectations, it'll exceed those, I think.
Yeah,
of course,
that's what I was thinking.
It might be the summer. It might be the summer hit that Warner Brothers needs, and then setting up for Dune to close out the year could make this a better year for Warner Brothers, in spite of the failure of The Flash.
Yeah, because I don't think was this greenlit under Zaslav's regime, because I know this movie came together quite quickly.
That's a good question.
Trying to remember, because there was 2 or 3 versions.
Robbie was signed on under Zaslav's regime.
I was going to say, I think this was so. This might be one of the first pure Zaslav productions we're going to get out of the studio.
Maybe I got to recheck those dates, but maybe.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, because I know the Schumer version was at Sony, and she left, and that was the same time, roughly, that Amy got fired, and that was a couple of years back, and then it sat in turnaround for a while. I'm trying to remember when Warner picked it up.
They may have picked it up under Sarnoff.
Because it wasn't long after they announced it that this thing went into motion, I think.
Yeah, that's
you could be right. It might have been picked up under Sarnoff and then
kept on as a holdover. One of the rare holdovers when Zaslav took over.
Because she clearly didn't start working on it till after, like, obviously Suicide Squad, and what other movie she did after that?
Birds of Prey or Harley Quinn, and I don't know what the title is of that movie anymore.
Yeah, and then there was she's done another movie or 2 in between there as well, like that Hollywood one. I'm trying to think of the name of it.
There's 2 Suicide Squads,
right?
Babylon, yeah. So she had to have just started filming this right after that. So yeah, it would have started under his regime, I think. But you're right, it probably was picked up under. Anyway, that's not even here nor there. But yeah, as far as this goes, I agree with this. That would have been kind of cool to have Tom Selleck play like Abner Ravenwood's son or something like that. And have them team up in a newer
Marion's older brother who hated Indy.
Lost opportunity. Yep.
He's such a pretty boy.
That's why we should be the ones giving Hollywood the ideas.
Like your old man.
Oh, it doesn't matter if you give the idea. It matters on who's important enough that likes your idea. That's
right.
No, I think it would have been fun to see them.
Ideas, but guess what? They think they have great ideas too, and the world is trying to tell them, no, your ideas suck.
And here's how much of a wink, wink, wink this would be, because there's actually a roundabout way of this. Because he didn't get the role because they called his contract on Magnum PI, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Magnum PI actually started out as a rival to Rockford on the Rockford Files. He didn't have the same name, but it was damn near the same character.
He was nothing like that character by the time he got to Magnum, though. Lance White.
No. Yeah, it was like this thing, like they had this rivalry going on, and they spun that character off into its own thing, but they changed it, like Clobby's saying, into what Magnum PI became. But yeah,
he was in 2 episodes of Rockford. The character actually was called Lance White, and he was based on the character from a Maverick episode 20-something years earlier. That Roy Huggins, who created Rockford, had written, and he remembered that character that was on an episode that was a lot like the Lance White character, who was absolutely perfect. He was Dudley Do-Right. He was perfect and everything. And all the good stuff happened to him, and all the bad stuff happened to Maverick. He did that in 2 Rockford episodes. And Selleck, that's the first time I ever saw Selleck. And he's so hilarious in that role. When Magnum became a TV show, I was like, wait a minute, is he going to be Lance White? That would be weird as a TV show. The guy's perfect. And it turned out that it wasn't, but I thought it was at first. I'm like, he's going to be from Rockford.
There's some similarities. Yeah, it's a reworking of it, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know exactly,
Yes.
but yeah, I remember watching a thing about it.
Yes.
But
Cool
it's the
show.
same people behind it. That's why. But yeah,
Yep.
Jason Webster though. Yeah, that'd been fun. I think it would have been. Let's see here. What else we got? We got Das Wolfen, who says Indiana Jones in the diaper of dementia is bordering on elder abuse the way they treat Indy. Well, the sad thing is I want to feel bad for Harrison Ford, but I don't.
His fault.
It's his fault. You
I
know,
mean,
and
he
this
read
is
the
where-
script, right? You know,
right? And this is where I was going to say
maybe.
you were going
Usually
to
just
come
read
from.
his own parts.
Yeah,
true.
all that, or he just said, "I want to ride a horse." That's all he said, probably. Like, what? Just make sure you write a scene where I ride a horse. But no, like, and this is where I figured you were going to come with this script. As I said the other day, script would bring up the fact that, you know, like Picard, Patrick Stewart doesn't give a shit about the character. He just wants to put him in those type of positions where he's got to struggle as an actor. You know, he wants him to be beaten down and old, and you know, they love the same reason why actors love death scenes.
It's Logan all over again.
Yeah, or Logan, another great example I brought up too, because like how he's all old and decrepit in Logan as well. And Patrick Stewart and those kind of actors, they like to play those kind of roles. There's only a few actors we brought up that really not so much maybe understand their characters, but understand the audience, and that's like your very rare Tom Cruises. And we brought up how even though he's batshit crazy in real life, Mark Hamill actually understands Luke Skywalker, you know, for instance. But you know, other than that, there's very few. And I even brought up how, you know, like even Leonard Nimoy didn't really understand the you know how Spock was so important until after the character had been dead, and then he, you know, was a much more protective of the character after that when he realized how important he was.
Even though he did the horrible remake, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, at that point,
again, it's very hard to say no to a good salesperson, and J.J. Abrams is a very good salesperson.
He can sell you an empty fucking box.
Yeah.
He suckered all of us in at one point or another.
He
I'm
is
telling you.
He is one of the greatest Hollywood con men of the 21st century.
Indeed, he is. But thank you for that, Mecha J. We got here with you think James Mangold will come back from this? I don't know, but he sure does owe a lot of people some apology. I wonder if this will come in between him and that Star Wars project.
I think he is a likely candidate to be thrown under the bus with regards to the fallout of.
That's what I was getting at here. Yep.
Of this.
Watch the Star Wars projects just go.
Because again, wasn't some of his attitude, especially around Matt Kadish, kind of discussed a little bit in the trades at any point?
Honestly, I don't know if it got picked up by some of the bigger trades or not at the time.
I can't remember because it was like 2.5 years ago.
Not as much as like Star Wars Theories thing was. With
Yeah.
Or with Pablo Hidalgo.
But I mean, this is a financial bomb where, again, in Hollywood, usually the people that are responsible for it find someone else to blame, and they always go down to the lowest lines that they can. And in that hierarchy, that's your writer director.
Yeah, I think he's going to lose his Star Wars project.
Warner Brothers tried to blame Joel Schumacher for Batman and Robin, and said we're not doing anymore. And then Joel Schumacher apologized and said, "I was just trying to make a good movie." And the whole world was like, "You know what, Joel, you're still working. We're going to give you some smaller films. You know, Phone Booth was really good, and some of his other follow-ups were pretty solid afterwards." And he kind of
I liked Phone Booth.
Well, they couldn't really blame him so much. I mean, yeah, he could have pushed back on some things, but it'd been worse for him in the end. I mean, that's the thing, is he had the Alex Kurtzman excuse when it came to the studio with Batman and Robin. Like, he was just delivering what they asked for.
Well, just doing what they asked for.
And plus, he probably had Kathleen Kennedy blowing smoke up his ass through the entire production. You know, oh, you're doing a great thing here. And this is
Mangold? Well, yeah. Well, that's the other thing, too, is what does Mangold usually make? He makes these depressing fucking Logan-type movies. And I knew as soon as he was brought on board, I'm surprised they didn't kill Indy. Like I was waiting for it.
I'm surprised.
Oh, I
And
mean,
honestly,
I liked
with some of the shit,
Copland, I liked Ford versus Ferrari.
yeah, but it's well, Ford vs Ferrari is probably one of his only films that isn't fucking totally fucking depressing. Copland is fucking depressing as hell.
It is, but it's got some. I mean, it's such good performances, and it's got
That's
Right.
that's a
good,
different
a
kind
good
of
movie
movie,
can be
though.
depressing,
exactly.
but
That's
an
a
Indiana
different-
Jones
yeah.
movie can't be depressing.
Exactly
no,
my
Indiana
point.
Jones
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
is essentially
It's not clear and
a
present
comedy
danger.
with a historical, fun, educational veneer over it.
Exactly. Like, yeah, there's a formula, and they totally, like, I can't remember who said it when we were doing our review. I think it was Jay Drunk Taprio who said, like, all these scenes, and you kind of alluded to this too, Script. All these scenes are just look at this scene. You remember this scene from Temple of Doom. Oh, remember this scene. You remember something like this in Last Crusade. Oh, look at this scene. You've seen something like this in, Raiders of the Lost. It was every scene was something like that, and like those were the stunt setup scenes that you're talking about.
Set pieces,
And I have
yeah.
a hard time even calling them that because that's the one thing that's also missing from this Indiana Jones movie that at least they did have some of in Crystal Skull, despite a lot of CGI, was actual fucking stunt work. Right? Like, sure, there's a little bit in this movie, but not nearly to the extent that we're used to. And that's kind of where I don't remember if you were on the show where I brought this up, where I compared this to. It's like it's the same reason we used to go see movies like Friday the 13th and shit. Is because we would like, oh wow, the wow factor is like because we knew watching these stunts, and it's the same reason why I think people are going to go see Mission Impossible and went to see Top Gun because they knew that Tom Cruise was doing that shit for real. We know when they're doing this shit for real, even though we know it's not Harrison Ford doing those stunts. We go to see those movies for the characters and to see him put in those, like you were saying, those elaborate stunts that keep growing and building and building and building on top of each other, which they kind of perfected by Last Crusade with the whole motorcycle sidecar bit with his dad and that whole scene there.
Oh, and the boat
that's
chase.
probably and the boat chase is very Bond, but yeah, like to me they kind of perfected it by that point. So that was what they were known for, right? And you'd go to see them for that spectacle, and that was the same reason you go to see Bond films, actually, for that reason, to bring Bond into this, is for the spectacle of it.
Yeah,
we've lost
I fully
that.
agree with you.
Well, the thing is,
people want to see something real on screen, something that's actually in front of the camera.
They want to be fooled based on how good the stunt work and the set piece
Yes,
is.
I want to be tricked.
CGI does not fool you. People are very keen to picking up the distinctions between, practical and artificial.
Especially when you got a movie like this where it looks like it was shot in front of a green screen through the entire thing. Sorry, go ahead, Cece.
No, I just say like AI and computers. It's not there yet. It wasn't there 20 years ago. It's still not there. It's not real. It's not a physical object. I don't know if and when it'll ever get there, but it's nowhere near there. And they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to just put fake stuff on the screen that was not in front of the camera, that the actors are not acting in front of, that they're not interacting with, that they can't touch. It's no wonder people are.
It's missing it's missing that verisimilitude and thinking of like train scenes, set pieces, and Mission Impossible. First Mission Impossible, that tunnel scene still holds up.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Well, all of the first Mission Impossible holds up still because most of it's practical. Yeah.
But like even when they're doing some of the train stuff, like that is on a green screen, but they have a massive fan blowing in on them.
Right, and it
the
may look
background
good.
plates are in sync with what's going on. Like everything just feels perfect, top notch, in sync. How they're doing it.
Well, not just that, they knew they only had so much that they could use this stuff, right? Like you couldn't, compared to now, where, and this is the great example I like to use, where in Jurassic Park, most people don't realize that there's only 52 CGI shots in that entire movie.
Yeah, I remember the making of that movie was amazing. The way that they did it.
Now they had like 52,000 or whatever it is in the last Jurassic World movie. I know it's not the exact number, but that's just the comparison. It's similar to that. It's actually, I think, more than that, to be honest with you. That's crazy to think of that. It's like, why have we gotten to this point where there's that much digital? And it's the same thing with music. And I know, CC, you know where I'm coming from here.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't mind digital as a format to carry the thing when it's done. But I feel the loss. And that was another thing with this Indiana Jones film. Because didn't Steven insist on shooting Crystal Skull on film still? Because I'm pretty sure that one was shot on film, or am I wrong? Even though George really wanted to shoot it in digital, Steven said, no, we're shooting it on film.
I can't remember.
I mean, I'm not knocking the desire to try new technology. I mean, everyone loves the new AAA game and getting the best graphics card and trying the most amazing stuff that technology has to offer. I'm all for it. The best television screen, but
Well, I'm saying it's a better carrier for film. I don't like digitally filmed stuff unless it's television. I don't give a shit. Because that's video, that's fine.
The
but
example with music, as you were mentioning, is around
Yeah.
2000, they moved to click track. And what that means is that back in the previous century, artists
Yep,
would
this was shot
play
in film.
together and it was never exactly 100 beats per minute or 80 beats per minute. They would just play as a band, right? They would play and they might speed up a little, might slow down a little bit, but it was organic, right? And then they moved to the click track where everything has to be exactly to a digital beat that never changes. So the drummer can't speed up or slow down. You can't, there's no ebb and flow anymore. There is something about
that
film.
removes harmony essentially, and not like
Yeah.
musical harmony, but the harmony between the relationships between the band players.
Exactly, because you're playing to the computer now instead of to each other.
Yeah, and even with the metronome isn't 100% all the time. It does change. It does, decline, or you can make it speed up depending on how you want to do it. And you can do that to the same degree with a computer, but it's still far more mechanical because it doesn't have that same type of rhythm that you get. You feel the mechanical nature of the rhythm on a computer than you do between people.
I figure CGI must be the same thing because when and I'm not a CGI artist, but you must be creating
It's the same thing
on
with
a
the
screen.
eye. Yes.
Yeah, where it has a start point and an end point, and it's an exact movement. It's not organic like a real thing would.
And that's the
move.
same thing with music. Yeah, and you can really tell it with vocals in the last 20 years because everything is drowned in auto tuning, whether you realize it or not.
Right, it has to be.
It is
to an exact hertz. It's like,
and even live performances now, they're learning that some of these artists are using auto tune live, and it's making it even worse. Because they're fighting against the. Well, yeah,
maybe there's not actually.
I was gonna say I don't know. I mean, it's sad because we've gotten to this point where, again, I love digital as a medium to use on certain things, but people are bringing up, oh, if it was shot on film, it looks like crap. That's true, but you want to know why that was? Because Crystal Skull, I did look, was shot on film, but it has a 2K intermediate, which means George insisted on editing it in digital, and because of all the fucking CGI that's on it, that's why.
Better to integrate it that way, yeah, through digital.
Exactly. So that's probably why it has kind of a digitally look to it, but it was shot on film. That's
why the monkey scene looks so bad, probably.
Yeah.
Well, the other part too is that some of their outdoor locations look like they're shot indoor because of how they lit it to accommodate for film and digital.
And they might have used some of the digital cameras to shoot some of that shit. That's very plausible. I wouldn't be surprised because George was always mixing in shit and trying new things. Because I noticed this, and I was completely correct in my assumption. I never noticed it until I watched the 4K version of it. But I didn't watch the whole movie, but I plugged it in just to see how it looked. Howard the Duck. And all of a sudden, in the one shot where he's being pulled through all the apartment buildings on his chair, there's like 2 or 3 shots that all of a sudden look like they're shot in video. And what it was George I'm like, that's weird. What was George doing there? Or did they lose the negative there? Why does that look like it's in video? That makes no sense. And I did a little research, and sure as shit, George was experimenting with removing the cable digitally, but he could only put it out in fucking video. So he put it in the movie in fucking video. And I never noticed it. Of course, we always watched it on video all these years in television up until recent years. So unless you saw it in the theater, you probably wouldn't have noticed the degradation in the quality. But those shots are all on video. And I'm like, what the fuck? Because it looks really weird all of a sudden in the 4K.
So the lower quality hid the wire work that he needed to hide.
Yeah, well, he was actually digitally removing the wire, but the computer at the time could only output to video. so he had no way of putting it on film. So he's like, basically, he put it out to video, and then he filmed the video. So it looks like dog shit, but if you're watching it on video, you don't really notice the difference, right? So, yeah. Because the rest of the movie looks like dog shit too, is the point. But those are the only shots that he does it in, I guess. But he was experimenting with some digital thing I read about just to remove the cable. It was like, really? You went to that extent? I think you should have just kept the cable. Like, fuck it. But anyway, long story short there on George. But yeah, digital can also be just, to me, it's shooting everything top to bottom in digital makes it feel so sterile, makes it feel unreal. Like I said, I don't mind it so much with television, but when I'm watching a movie, I like that filmic look. I like it being shot at 24 frames per second. I like the way it makes light look. I like the way it makes colors look. I like the way it makes skin look. You know, that's another thing. Everything that's shot in digital, especially when by the time it gets to us, even though there's no real degradation, there's not supposed to be, there still is to a point, because all these Marvel movies, whenever I popped in the 4K versions, they look dingy. And what I mean, they feel like darker than they should be. They don't quite seem to have the colors pop like they should. You know, and everybody will tell me, well, yeah, it's because they're digital and not film. And I know that, but I'm like, that's the problem. These films should feel like film, right? Shouldn't they just feel like film? I don't see a problem there. And all you got to do is shoot on film, and then you can do the rest as far as digital and post-production, especially now that we have 4 and 6, 8K scanning. You know, you don't even lose any
development costs and scanning costs.
I get it.
Yeah.
But there's been how many directors
I think
now?
It's worth it, but it's just
And not for everything script, don't get me wrong, but like there's been at least a handful of directors now that have been now starting to shoot again in film. And I predicted this was going to start happening again at some point. You had Wes Anderson shoot his latest film in film. Babylon was shot in film. We just talked about Spielberg's last movie was shot on film. And I know there's at least 1 or 2 other ones that were shot on film in the last couple of years here, or last year even. And it's coming back because a lot of the artists or the directors and cinematographers are feeling the way I'm feeling. Digital is not the same.
Well, they're not progressing it in the same manner that to try and emulate film as they used to. And the worst part is that a lot of the film companies have switched primarily to refining digital, and they don't produce as much film anymore, which makes it more expensive.
That's a problem. Yes.
And basically it was just the film companies realizing that their digital competitors were costing them money, so they switched their model to digital, and as a result, they actually end up shooting up the price of film because they're all the advantages that came with digital, and not paying attention to the fact that this might actually end up having a fallout effect on what is actually being shot, and then they tried to compensate that with lenses, and it didn't work out too well. But no, I mean, film can do stuff to this day that digital can't yet replicate, but it's getting so close, and with every 5 years or so they take another leap closer and closer. But I don't know, part of me feels like it's that Forever Apart game where that they show you in Stripes, where you take half a step closer but you're never actually ever going to end up touching, and I think that might be the case with digital at this point.
I think this is what Spielberg's been saying for the last 30 years. Go ahead, sorry, Snow.
I was just saying there's an old example with when you buy like a speaker system. If you're into sound, you spend $100 on a set of speakers, right? And they sound all right. You spend $500 on a set of speakers, and they sound really nice. Spend $1,000, and they sound spectacular. But then the difference between spending $1,000 on your speakers and spending $20,000 on your speakers is nominal. You can barely hear it, and if you can you really hear it?
Yeah.
You could spend $50,000, $100,000, and you keep spending more and more and more, but you never actually reach that 100% threshold, whatever it is you're trying to reach. You instead of gaining 5%, now you're just gaining like 1,000%. It's just,
no, you're 100%
you keep
correct.
Chasing
CC.
it, throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at something, trying to chase something you can never reach.
And that's where I kind of feel like now is the time we need to kind of make a decision, and at least not like we're going to make any changes, but I'm just saying, like, because 4K has reached the point now. Now we've reached the threshold where you can make film look like film using a carrier, right? Like that's the thing, CC, is to me, you can spend $1,000 on speakers and $1,000 on a system and all that business, or 20,000, like you said, and only hear a nominal difference. To me, the bigger difference is what is your carrier for the medium itself, right? To me, I'll go to like either the original master track, highest resolution recording digitally I can find, even though it's digital from maybe an analog source. I know it's going to be as close as it's going to get to that original source, to where I'm not going to be losing anything. And like you said, I can't get much better than that, to where if I had the original tape sitting in front of me and played it, my ear could not tell a nominal, maybe a 0.5% difference, right? Because even though people have put a lot of bullshit out there about digital audio, as far as recording audio, as long as it's done well, you're not going to notice a difference between an analog recording and a digital recording as long as it's done well. You cannot, to the ear. And I don't care if anybody fucking says it. They're never going to be able to tell a difference unless you've got some inner ear issue where you can actually hear something coming from digital noise or something that I don't believe. Like people who say they're allergic to lettuce.
I mean,
Like-
I'm not a fan of lettuce myself.
No, but it's just fucking water. It's 90% water. If you're allergic
Yeah.
to lettuce, you got a fucking problem. I mean, maybe there's that 1.00% of the people in the
Yeah.
world that are. But, you know, it's just like you're not going to notice that much of a difference. But if whatever you're starting out with is like a digital source to the end, it's going to be just the way it was all the time, and that's fine. But like Script's saying, and like I think the super chat's getting to here at the end, so I'll just jump right to it. Just Chad St. John says digital from capture to deliverable can look really good, but the DP and everybody in post have to know what they're doing. That's the thing. And to me, it's still too sterile. There's something about the filmic element, and this goes along with, you know, capturing a real person's voice and in the music. And even if you do everything else in the music digital, as long as you don't manipulate the voice, I think there's still something to be said for that.
Yeah, life's not sterile.
Yeah.
It's just dirty. That's
There's
real life.
just something to film that the way it works and looks, there's a realness to it. Like I can see in a really great 4K capture the tiny grains of the picture, you know, fluctuating around that create the picture. That's similar to how digital works anyway. The only difference is digital is pure squares or whatever, and film doesn't have a shape. You know, like that's where they, you know, have tried for years and years and years to come up with a resolution that it gets close to, and somewhere basically between 4 and 8K is pretty much where we're at. And I say there's a variation because it depends on what you're talking about. You're talking about 35 millimeter or 70 millimeter. Because 35 millimeter, you can pretty much capture on 4K, no problem, and below it. But you want to get pure crisp 70 millimeter, you might have to go as high as 6 or 8K to get it. But then you're talking about a delivery system, which that's what I'm saying. At this point, even the human eye wouldn't probably be able to differentiate a really good 6 or 8K scan of a 70 millimeter film compared to a 4K scan of it, right? Mm-hmm. Or a down converted 6K to a 4K. You know, because it's even getting that way with Blu-rays and DVDs now, where they've gotten out of their way of doing all this digital manipulation. Is they've learned, oh, well, if we just downsample it, it looks pretty good. And they've learned that now. So
yeah, right.
They just take the original file and downsample it instead of doing all this manipulation to it. Then it does look pretty good. But yeah, and some of it maybe just be a lack of care at this point when it comes to DVDs. But there's some DVDs that I've been like, God, outside of the color, there's no sharpening, no edge enhancement. So it looks pretty damn good. You know,
Yeah.
Hey, we got 70s in here. And anyway, now that I've gone down
Good evening.
the dork route for the last 20 minutes, I apologize. Thank you guys for the super chats. We got some more here. Pinochet's Helicopter Tour says there's a behind the scenes DVD in my trilogy set. I think he's talking about the Indiana Jones one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the original trilogy set is fantastic.
I think I still have that. I should still have that.
Don't get rid of that. That's worth money.
I don't think I would ever get rid of it. No. I just don't know if it's in a box somewhere. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have that somewhere. Accident Seller says rewatched Indiana Jones trilogy. Raiders is by far the best. Missed Yahtzees in Doom. I hated they made Brody comedic relief in Crusade, and Sala was wasted in it. Well, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. Jack White says, reminder, the new Rurouni Kenshin anime starts in 3 days. They should be giving you money.
They should.
Yeah.
I actually, because of Jack, I'm going to watch that because I watched all
Well,
the movies, but I'd never seen any of the animates. So I'm going to watch it. Thank you, Jack.
He's a great character.
He is a great character.
Well, and
Yeah, I love
Jack's a
those
good
films.
salesman. He's persistent. Larry Loveridge says a tip for the musical act tail time. Well, thank you, Larry. You missed all the musical acts tonight, Brian. Did you hear any
Yeah,
music?
my apologies, but I'll watch. I'll go back and watch it all.
Oh, that or maybe we'll encore some of it while you guys are heading out.
Yeah.
Doug85 says James Mangold directed Identity with Ray Liotta. Okay, I did not know that.
Don't know
I
that
guess.
one.
That's the thing. Mangold's done a lot of
It's been working for 30 years. So
yeah, he's done a lot of movies. It's just it's usually nothing. Nothing in his that I remember looking in his resume
Well, the thing is,
screamed
like,
Indiana Jones.
yeah, like he's an A-list in quality, but not A-list in reputation as a filmmaker.
Well, or just in a sense of like he's the wrong guy for this job, more or less.
Well,
is
maybe,
what I was trying to say.
I mean, again, you never know. Some people might surprise you, right?
They
'Cause,
could.
again, they could be passionate with regards to story or what they want to do, but they've just never had the opportunity to go into that genre because all the people that wanted them for were for X amount of projects. That is, the case. There's a reason why comedians are so good at being dramatic actors if they're really good comedians, is because they get in touch with those emotions, those parts of us, and then they hide it so that they can entertain and bring joy. But again, that's why you never expect when you see, oh man, Robin Williams and Jim Carrey, they're doing drama films. Oh wow, they're actually really good in this. Why? Well, you never expect it because again, what they advertise is not the same as what encapsulates.
And I get what you're saying there.
All their skills, yeah.
1 hour photo,
and that's fair. But here's one thing I will say, and it's the most obvious director that should have directed this, and nobody has said it yet that I know of.
Joe Johnston?
Besides Joe Johnston, which would have been a great choice. And I knew we were going to bring him up, and I had him in my back
we love
pocket.
Joe Johnston. He's
but that's why. But no, that's not who I was thinking of, because he was already in house. Jon fucking Favreau. Why was they not, instead of wasting his ass and time on fucking Mandalorian, going, hey, get over here and make Indiana Jones? It's right up his fucking alley.
Oh yeah, he would have, because he's all about the quest design, right? He would have taken that tomb and thought about every challenge they would have faced along the way.
He looked at the Dial of Destiny script and he said, guess what? We're not doing that.
Well, if it was all him on his own type of stuff, when he's not partnered with another writer or a nosy producer, yeah, he could probably get away with that. But again, I don't think he would have done it because
him and Kathy probably aren't as friendly as
they're probably already in a bad position at that point.
And it's not that I'm saying he would have knocked it out the park, but it was like, how has nobody else brought this up to this point? Like, if all the fucking people in the sphere of the world, even J.J. Abrams would have been a better choice than fucking Mangold, at least it would have just been a paint-by-numbers movie that felt like an Indiana Jones movie at the end of the day.
I
mean, with a lot of lens flare.
Assassination. Yeah.
I've got an off-the-wall suggestion that I think would have been a good choice, which is Kenny Branagh.
Ooh,
he's an interesting choice. I think he could have pulled it off.
Yeah,
I don't know how well we could do the comedy parts of it though.
That's why I picked Favreau, because Favreau knows how to do a balance of the action, the comedy. This kind of a movie, he's done these scales of films many times over. Right.
I mean, he has directed.
He's worked with Harrison.
Comedies. He has directed a couple of comedies in the past, quite a while ago. There were Peter's Friends and a couple of other earlier.
His
movies.
comedy, though, I get what Script's saying though, because Branagh's comedy is very dry. Like, and that's where people are like, oh, well, that's why I didn't like Ragnarok, because the first two Thors weren't funny. No, I say Thor love the second one. What was it called again? Jesus Christ.
Dark World.
That one wasn't funny, but the first one actually has a lot of humor in it. If you're paying attention, it has a lot of Kenneth Branagh humor in it. It's a lot of dry, real world kind of like fish out. There's a fish out of water elements and stuff in there.
He's pretty good with visual style and sweeping.
He might have been able to.
So I know it's from left field, I think, but I think he could.
I don't know if his style lends itself to because like when I think of Branagh's style though, like I think of lavish. Like
well, you think of like kind of Shakespearean
type of shit.
Anyone remember Dead Again?
More theater than
Dead Again was a great movie. Yeah,
I've seen that so many times.
Yeah. He's got a great track record, and
Guy Ritchie in the chat. I know
he's done a couple of Marvels, but he hasn't done any sweeping action movies.
Or he could have just went with Peter Jackson. He would have at least nailed the
Peter Jackson would have been a great
Peter Jackson probably would.
See, that's another one that's like a duh. Like he should have directed one a long fucking time ago. He should have directed The Crystal Skull, to be honest with you. When Spielberg said, "I really don't want to do this," they should have handed it over to Peter, and Peter probably could have made it work. Not with the Crystal Skull part of it, but he probably could have made the rest of it work somehow. And it almost feels like he would have his kind of a.
So, do we feel that Mangold's career may well be severely damaged? Other than,
I think Script's right that he's going to take the blame and the brunt for this by losing his Star Wars project and probably getting put into the minors again for a little while. But I don't think he's going to be out. He's got too long of a career.
Yeah,
he's got way too many. under his belt that he'll. Yeah.
Well, there's some
Yeah,
great movies.
you can still get movies financed, like low budget movies financed. You can still get. I don't think that's going to be a problem for him.
Yeah, another Copland style thing or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
But statistically,
That'll be his comeback. Yeah.
with the behaviors of how Hollywood works that I'm familiar with, I would bet dimes to dollars that Mangold is probably going to take the brunt of this more so than anyone else.
Yeah.
Now,
if Mangold
that's going to be a real surprise shocker to me.
The sad part is Mangold, love him or hate him, despite how he acted online, his type of filmmaking would have been better for like a last Rambo movie, like another final, just a last, because he would have lent, he would have lent his kind of services to that a bit better. Like
I think there's going to be one more, Tom.
He's talked about it back and forth. I'll believe it when he actually starts shooting it. Snow, kind of like with the last one. Because do you realize there was like 6 different versions before we got to that one, and they ended up going right back to the one they originally were going to do anyway.
Yeah,
it went from him doing that to then it was going to be him versus like a predator creature, and then it was like it was based on some book called Something of the Wolves, and it was going to be kind of more like the first movie again, and then it went from that to like I don't remember. We did it in our documentary. It was a couple different versions. They finally just went back to the Mexican.
Right. Well, I just figured they'd always end it. Well, they kind of did in Rambo, but I always figured they'd end it with him just traveling the road again. Back on the road and just walking as a drifter. How movie starts in the beginning of the franchise. Yeah,
that's the sad part, right? Like if you don't leave it a bookend with Rambo 2004 or whatever it was, 8, whatever year that movie came out.
Yeah, 8, I think.
Yeah, if you don't end it that way, then you almost gotta kind of kill him now in the last movie,
right?
Because the 5th one kind of left it in a weird spot.
Well, if you watch the after credit scenes, he still gets on the horse and rides off. So
I know, but my point is it's just kind of like you almost got to have Rambo going out in a blaze of fucking glory, though.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
That's the kind of guy who wants to die on the warfield, standing up in his boots. Exactly.
Yep.
Saving somebody.
Yeah.
A deaf little girl, that always helps. Kong, for instance. Like I said, you could have left every other human out of that movie and I'd have been fine as long as Kong's kicking ass for that little girl. You fall in love with her the first few minutes of the movie, just like Kong does, and he's like all throughout the movie, that's all his thing is, I'm gonna protect that little girl. That's all you needed. You didn't need the rest of the humans. Highlander says, compare the Lord of the Rings Balrog CGI with what we get today, and that's 2001, and it's gotten worse. Well, the big difference is there, Highlander, and this is where a lot of, and I'm sure Script and a few others in our community have heard similar things from people who work close to her in the animation, CGI, special effects community. Back then, like that was my point with Jurassic Park, saying it only had 52 shots. Well, when you're making a movie that takes a year to make or more, and you've got a year to do 52 shots, that's a sufficient amount of time. But when you're doing 52,000 shots in a year and they keep changing shit at the last minute, that starts to become a problem. That's why these effects are coming out the way they are. At least that's the common excuse I hear across the board, is that they're A, understaffed, B, overworked, C, not given enough time or direction to do these things in the first place. And then they redirect them later on and they think it's just like, oh, you just go in and push some buttons, and it doesn't work that way. Right? No. You have to do all these other levels of work on top of that when you fix something. It's gotten easier than it used to be, but it doesn't mean the workload's any less for these guys, basically.
Yeah, it's hundreds, if not thousands of layers to use that term of rendering and compositing and getting it all in there. The other part too is that it's an inverse. You get more special effects shots than you get non-special effects shots in these films, and it's not the way it's supposed to be. A more budget conscious movie, and I've said this many times, is you make us fall in love with the characters in camera practical scenes that are very important and dramatic, and you save all that expensive stuff for the set piece so that we actually feel what's going on. We care about the characters. You open with a strong set piece that's like the best thing in the movie, and then you just keep on saturating us with more set pieces every 10 minutes.
It becomes anticlimactic.
Yeah, there's nothing special about it anymore. Yeah. I mean, that's what the brilliant part is with regards to, like, say, The Empire Strikes Back. It opens with a cool set piece, the attack on Hoth Base. But you don't get anything near that level again in that range anymore. It actually goes more intimate. It goes more, more differently paced. And then the next set piece you get is a lightsaber fight between Vader and Luke. And that doesn't require a whole lot of digital effects. A lot of that stuff can be done in camera.
There's actually a way this, and I kind of trying to wrap my head way around explaining this. This is the best way I can do it. But going off of, the 52 shots compared to the 5,200 shots or whatever. Like the whole thing is back then they used to only use a computer when they couldn't do it practically.
Yep.
That's the only time they would.
Mhm.
And then they started using it more and more just because they could. And then basically around, and I hate using George as an excuse for this, but it kind of is his fault, because between the prequels, sometime between Jurassic Park and the prequels, they all decided, okay, George has proved we can just do this like this. Almost 90% of the movie CGI now.
Mm-hmm.
And like everything coming out of there was like 90% CGI. And you see the big difference in things like Lord of the Rings. Look at the first trilogy, where a good 60-70% of that's practical mixed with CGI stuff, to where when you get to The Hobbit, where it's like 90 to 95% CGI all shot on green screens, much like episode 3 was. And that's the thing. And again, I'm not blaming George for this, but he was just experimenting, trying to show what he could do with this technology and how real you could make it look in certain situations. Or something like Star Wars, it lends itself to it, but they were starting to use it for everything then after that. Even look at like the difference between Spider-Man and then Amazing Spider-Man, for instance. Like there's some amazing shit they did in the first couple Spider-Man movies with CGI, but a lot of it's still pretty practical. You still got a stuntman in a suit and doing all that kind of stuff, flipping around and doing stuff here and there, and they just remove the wires and whatnot. But then by the time you get to the Amazing Spider-Man, a lot of that's it's all CGI.
Yeah.
From top to fucking bottom. Like, so it's like you get to a point where it's like, I don't care anymore. Because I know none of that's real. And even if a piece of it's real, who fucking cares? It's been manipulated so much that my own eyes are saying, get it out of my head because it doesn't look real. Well, there's something missing there. I don't get it.
What's kind of missing is that they have deferred in-camera practical labor to digital. And in an effort to save money. And at first it did save money. And now because they're relying so much on digital, the prices are going up. Because hardware is expensive, hours are expensive. I mean, when they're building a digital set, they have to re-render a new angle every time. When it comes to building a physical set, you want to render a new angle, you just move the camera.
Yep.
Do you think, Script, then, that we're losing a lot of the skill sets that enabled those in-camera effects because of the focus on digital?
It's on we're losing it. It's on decline, but it's not going to be forgotten, because even there's still people within a reasonable age, like between 35 and 60, that can still work. That's still very good. That still are around to teach things to have it continue. The problem is it's going to take Hollywood a while to realize that that's the way to go to invest. And by the time they do, some of those people might not be around anymore.
A lot of classical techniques might get lost, though.
A lot of classical techniques might get forgotten, but you'll have to go back to those films when they pulled it off and basically look at the archives, look at the behind-the-scenes stuff, the EPK stuff, and basically recreate it. But again, if you're really good, and a lot of people are, they will be able to recreate it without much loss in that part. Because again, there's a certain mechanics to it where it's like, yes, it has to be done this way. This is the limitations of where we do it. But it really comes back to getting back to set design, cinematography. They still have not cracked the digital lighting aspect on a computer generated set. Light does behave mathematically, but there's also a strange attractor to it as well. And there's a great documentary with regards to Deep Space Nine, where they built the Deep Space Nine station and they shot it, and then they recreated it in CGI with the same lighting schematics, but the lighting just didn't behave the same way it did in practical, and the practical looked way better. And that's been the problem that a lot of physicists and computer programmers working together trying to solve haven't been able to solve yet.
Yeah, I don't understand either, but that's where I think that the old guys and the young guys need to get together and kind of try and figure out, how do we make digital look like the chemical reaction that film has when it captures light, and also teach these guys how to light movies to where they look like films. Right, like there's the two things that I think need to be mainly addressed, and only then can I kind of step back and say
processing of it. It's the digital conversion processing of it, because again, when you're shooting digital, the camera is essentially digitally developing the film as it's being recorded.
But it captures light differently than film. That's what I'm getting at too.
Even though it's got the same lenses and all that other stuff, it processes and captures light differently.
That's where I think the trick is.
And then the post effects, when they try to alter and change that light, it also screws the believability spectrum.
That's what I'm getting at. Like, they need to find a way to in camera to where when you pick up a camera and flip it to that setting, that it captures things the way the film do. So, like, say a guy from the 1960s could come out and light a scene, and you could still use that camera the same way you did a film camera.
Well, they can do that. It's just the processing is on the back end is different. That's
I guess, because here's the thing I know about film and camera is that, or film and digital video. Digital, you don't need nearly as much light. You can use natural light as far as that goes if you really want to.
You can crank up the ISOs.
But as far as like film, that's why it always looked so different, and that's why things always look so different when you see them, you know, in actual life than they did in film, is because of the difference in the lighting and the way it captured light and how much light you actually needed to flood things with to be able to capture that. And again, I know it's a chemical process, so it's going to be difficult to recreate, but it's something that you would think after this long they would have figured it out.
Well, no, here's the thing. Like with digital on like a default setting, it captures just like film. The problem is that they don't always use the default setting because they change as long as you crank it,
maybe if you crank it down to 24 frames, because
there's a thing in digital that they don't have in regular film, which is called an ISO setting. Now this picks up how much candle light is in the shot, and it's done digitally. And it's done digitally in camera live. You don't have that with a 35 or 70 millimeter camera. You can't change that. It's just the way it is. So with the ISOs, you're using a digital augmentation to pick up more light, and they usually do that to solve problems when they want to either focus or isolate light in certain areas with a shot. Now, DOPs, they haven't changed how they do stuff really in the last 70 years. It's basically just the photographing process between film and digital is what changes. So if they're shooting something where they're like, we want it really dark, we want a focus point on light, they can light that for film. But if they're shooting digital and they said, okay, we want to do the same thing, well, they don't have to do as much in camera to achieve that same effect because they'll use the camera settings itself to manipulate how they pick up light. And you can't do that with a traditional analog camera. And that's kind of the issues there, is that they don't have to do it, but they do. And that you can get artificial digital noise when you crank up the ISOs, just like you would with film, but it doesn't behave in the same way. And then when you go into the rendering aspect,
it looks more like video noise.
You do a DNR on it, and it screws the whole thing up, especially if it's not done properly. So,
and there's my problem.
Yeah,
and I get what you're saying. And
you can light you can light a full room if you crank up the ISOs on a digital camera, you can light a full room with a Bic lighter. Cigarette lighter, like that's how
and that's another thing, is it's like a lot of them have just skimped on the lighting ever since they moved to digital anyway. And I get it. My thing is though, is it does capture it like video though, and not film. That's the difference. And there's still a video element to it. And like you just said, when you can make like that, you can make like a grain, but it's still more like a video grain, not a film grain. That's my problem with it. Yeah, and that's where it is. To me, it's still, at the end of the day, it's still a video format. At the end of the day, it's not a film. There's still, I don't know. We're done with this talk.
No, there's just something missing that I don't think.
Yeah, and I can't put my finger on it. And we're going to keep going in circles. But what were you going to say, CC?
I was just going to say, like, maybe black and white and old movies do cover a bit for it. And I see that with Doctor Who, you know, the set pieces from the original run, the first couple of Doctors, but also just the really, really old movies like Metropolis and Nosferatu. They're 100 years old, and they look better to my eyes than some of the modern CGI movies. And they're 100 years old, and I like the look of them
in camera stuff. Like today, again, you have the digital aspects stuff too, which is that, we're doing a green screen, we have a digital set. Well, guess what? When you're rendering a digital set and you have to use light in the digital set, the light's not going to behave the same way as it does on the actor. And you're going to have that disconnect because computer algorithms cannot nail down how light behaves. Monkey Jesus is in the chat. He's talking about the artificial sun lamps. Oh my God. Those things are terrible. I mean, they look great in camera, but it just turns the whole room into an oven. I've even been in parts where they had it in like down a hallway, like 100 meters away or like 90 feet away or whatever. and they're bouncing it off of mirrors to try and reduce the heat, and it
Well,
doesn't
hey, look,
work. Like it still gets really hot.
if the story is calling for the characters on screen to be in a hot place and they're hot and sweaty, it's real.
No, but this is just like trying to replicate daylight for an
But
indoor
at the same
set.
time, here's the thing: is they don't do it as much now as they used to. But like that's where we not to get us too far off course here and off on another tangent. But where you talked about like Batman, for instance, why Burton's and Schumacher's films worked better than the more recent ones is because they created a believable world. Doesn't necessarily mean that those things work in the real world. It doesn't matter. It's their believable world. And that's another thing is I'd rather see a fake set and fake lighting and it all just know it's a movie than it trying to manipulate me into doing like they with Indiana Jones, because that shit just looks fake as fuck. Now, of course, Indiana Jones can't be shot like something like that on a set. And that's where it goes back to our original point is these things wouldn't even be so much of a problem. The film element wouldn't even be so much of a problem if they had just actually gone and filmed these things and done them like they should have. But we know just from watching this movie that a good 80% of it is just shot in front of a green screen or in front of that fucking volume shit.
Yeah, the stagecraft volume. Yep.
Yeah, because the few leaks that we did get out were probably the few times they were shooting out in public. And those are like 3 scenes in the whole movie. And like one of them is so manipulated by CGI, it might as well not even been shot outside. And like Script was just saying, even though it was shot out in real sunlight, the computer couldn't get the sunlight right on the CGI shit. And I'm talking about the last scene in with Archimedes and all that business. It looks fake as fuck.
Yeah.
Even though that was shot outside. You can tell,
like,
but yeah.
The light bouncing off the actors is fine. It's the light bouncing off the artificial structures in the camera that
the planes and everything else.
No,
the
that
sky
took me
looks
right out of
fake
the
as
scene.
fuck, and yeah,
the whole background is like, wait, that looks like low budget television. Watching Indy 5. What's going on?
Yeah. And Pinochet's helicopter rulers. Well, the Knoll brothers were just basically built up on what George did with the droid, the edit droid.
Yeah.
Because didn't they actually buy that software from him, or was that a different company? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was a different company, but I could be
It might
wrong
have been.
there.
Yeah.
Again, when they made those purchases, I was just kind of getting into
But it's the same fucking concept, though. All the digital editing software we use right now can all be traced back to the editing droid. What the editing droid was this big digital bay that George Lucas had set up so they didn't have to deal with all the actual film. And it was all scanned in digitally, and you would basically make a digital version of your negative, and then you would go back to the negative, get those shots, do your negative that way instead of dealing with it all physically.
Instead of having to develop a negative multiple times, so you have multiple strips to cut together and put. It was basically just saving
and to clean up
labor.
And clean up all the mess, because it was messy to edit a film.
Oh god, it is messy. But I mean, one thing that's funny is that you have the raw negative, which is what they developed to create the thing that they cut together on the assembly, and you get maybe you'd be sweeping up an old floor and you'd find 40 strips, 2 feet long or something of the exact same scene at slightly different lengths because they're going to be taped or trimmed off, frame by frame for something else. But it's the exact same stuff. Like, it's not different takes. It's just the exact same. They just duplicated it over and over because they didn't know they had to nail the timing right. And they didn't want, and it would be cheaper for them to duplicate it because sometimes if they missed up on the actual physical cutting and taping of it to get the line right, they would then have to, they'd screw up and they have to take it all apart again and do it. And then, add stuff back on with tape and back off. And sometimes that, if they didn't do it just right and they were running it through another, to be rephotographed again as a proper strip, it might jam, might get clogged, might disconnect or something. So they would just try and make sure they had multiple copies of it. If anyone's out there and you find old repertory theaters, sometimes they have a storage closet of old negatives that were sent from studios of samples of things that they were doing for trailers and whatnot that are probably worth like several $100s.
Oh yeah, like I've talked to people who have like boxes of trailers and stuff, and I'm like, you should sell those. Like, they're worth a lot. No, yeah, and the thing is that's why it's so important right now, especially with audio and movies, that they go back to the negatives in the original multi-track recordings and get this stuff down digitally. And I know a lot of people are like, no, you want to, because guess what? It's degrading. It's going away. It's not going to last forever. And a lot of these are so old and brittle that if they don't do something with them now, they're never going to be able to do anything with them again. right? And that's why some of this preservation is very, 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 very fucking important.
Yeah, I mean, some of the preservation techniques are basically they just re-photograph the negative, a perfect duplicate, and then they just store the original, and then but the new photograph one is also just as good as the original because it's a re-photographing process, just like what they did with the original reels way back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. But yeah, you have to maintain it. You have to keep it in a temperature controlled area, and you have to make sure that everything is sealed properly, and you then have to check on it yearly.
Isn't the old celluloid extremely flammable as well?
Yes. Yeah. And then you had other problems throughout the years, depending on what stock you were using. You have a vinegar syndrome that creeps up on certain prints from certain years, which for those who don't know is kind of like where basically the film will melt together. Chemicals will like just kind of break down, and it starts out by the film will start turning yellow.
Yeah, they tried solving that with the film sleeves. I remember they were talking about that. Basically, you just put the film in a sleeve that coils around itself again, kind of like a garden hose. It doesn't work.
Well, and they started using different kind of films and experimented, and that's where we get a lot of weird shit throughout the 70s and 80s, where stuff is very varied in the film stock that it uses. And then they found out that I think it was East Kodak type of film stock that Star Wars used in a bunch of other movies that started to fade green. Because it was lose the blue or whatever. So like that's where George was saying, the original negative is fucked. Yeah, it's fucked because it's green or whatever, but they still have the original scans. Anyway, you were going to say something, CC. I'm sorry.
I was going to say there's a difference between doing things correctly and doing things easy. And if we take the digital medium as an example, assume that we're going to do things digitally, like modern music, or whether it's filming in digital, you can leave things up to the automated process, the computer process, right? To provide the best results that the program is programmed to deliver. You can just let the scene render, or you can do it correctly by hand, even in a digital format. In music, the example for that is spectral editing, because then you edit the music digitally by human hand, one frame at a time. And it takes, you can spend 10, 20, 30 hours on a 3-minute song hand editing digitally, but you will get superior results, right? But you could also just let the computer algorithm do it for you in 10 seconds and get pretty okay results. It's acceptable.
And there's a limit
never as good.
There's a limit to how well the human ear can hear, though, isn't there, CC? So maybe good enough is good enough in most cases.
And that's where but the thing is with what CC's talking about, and what the digital preservation of music is, and what some people, especially music fans, and I'm sure you, CC, and Brian may get what I'm getting at here, is there's a big difference between what they used to say when they said digitally remastered and now digitally restored. Okay, so in the wording, there's a difference, because when they used to say digitally remastered back in the day, literally all they were usually doing is going back to the original two-track tape masters of the mix downs and just cranking up the compressing them to hell and then putting them on a CD, right? That's all they were doing. And then more recently, though.
So I was going to say, compression is another great thing, because you could run compression through an algorithm that'll do it for you in 5 seconds, and it'll be compressed. Or you can do it by hand and amplify or de-amplify single like thousandths of a second. Those little bits that are way, way louder than the rest of the song, and do it by hand to create a proper compression. It takes a lot longer. It will sound better.
Well, here's the thing. Just since the 90s and early 2000s, we've gotten a lot better technology now. And I know you know this, CC, because you use a lot of it yourself in what you do. And just between being able to separate older recordings now that were only done on 2, 4, and 6-track and 8-track mixes back in the day, in comparison to now where, they've got multiple tracks on digital. You can do it endless. But back, they got to a point, what was 24 or 36, the most, I can't remember now, they got in tape and back in the day. But my point is they're actually going back and taking, instead of just taking the mix down master, they're going back and they're digitally taking each individual track now. That's when they say digitally restored. Okay. And then they're remixing it again, generally, hopefully to sound like it did before, but now you're hearing it in a first generation mix. And some people don't like that so much. They don't like that they get to hear a little bit too much than they used to. Me, on the other hand, I appreciate being able to hear things that I never got to hear before that were buried in the mix, or 3-4 generations lost.
Yeah, you can repair, if I wanted to, maybe I shouldn't use the word repair, but you could take something that was perhaps unjustly buried in the mix, say a bass line that was originally mixed down,
or a guitar lick or
Justice
something.
and bring it, well, there's an example, and bring it back up the way it should have been if it had been done properly the first time. So,
And what CC's talking about is if you actually get more nuanced with the mixing, it doesn't drown out other things now, right? Like that's the beauty of it, is you can manipulate it digitally in ways you couldn't do it in analog, that it's not going to affect the other so much, to where in an analog format, you got a little too much bass, it's going to drown out anything that's at a higher end, and vice versa. So
yeah, you're typically in an analog process like that. If you increase something, you're going to lose something else.
Exactly.
Else. Yes.
To where you don't
There's a
have that
trade-off.
here.
Yeah.
And there's some people, and I totally respect it. There's some people who it's not for them, right? Like they just want it the way it was, and that's cool. You want to listen to it on vinyl, that's cool for you. That's your gig, baby. But I'm not going to sit there and give into the argument that digital doesn't sound as good as vinyl, because it's not true. It's just not true.
Somebody mentioned some of the Beatles stuff, and if you listen to some of the, those Beatles sets,
because scientifically digital actually
phenomenal.
does have higher resolution
On
rates
headphones,
and all that stuff.
sound phenomenal. I mean, the things you can hear in there.
Because technically even records don't capture what's on the original analog tapes.
Yeah. But if you want a good time and have a few beers, you stick the record on and have a party. If you want to just really
if you're doing it that way, and there's some great sounding
you
record albums, don't get me wrong, but sorry.
It's you can do courses for courses. If you want to sit with your headphones on really listening to the music, then some of the stuff you're talking about, Tom, is fantastic. Yeah.
The reason I bring it up, I mean, you look at Led Zeppelin and the way they recorded the drums, and that was 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we talk about how modern CGI is worse than it was 20 years ago. And, it's, there's just, we've also heard stories about how the CGI artists are rushed because they have to keep redoing things. And they have less and less time to do the good work. It's like when you're given the proper amount of time to do something correctly, no matter what it is, maybe it's building a car. Like, I bought my RV because I realized it was the best built RV, so it wouldn't keep breaking down as often as a poorer built one. And with CGI and modern music and modern movies, it's the same thing. If these artists are rushed, or if they just don't care to do it correctly, then it won't look as good as when Steven Spielberg when he did the first Jurassic Park movie. The care was put into that, right? And it shows itself.
I just think that, I know I'm old-fashioned, trust me, but I think that the technology available today in music it's too much now. There's too much can be done, and it can be done.
It's too easy for anybody to just make a song. That's part. Yes,
it wasn't easy to make Sgt. Pepper or Dark Side of the Moon or whatever,
it's too hard to also separate what's supposed to be, the cream of the crop from the garbage too. That's
if you could press a button now as a producer on a Pro Tools or whatever and create an entire song, it may have 1,000 tracks on it and everything that you can layer onto it, but does it mean it's any good? And I'm not saying there are not great talented artists that can use those tools effectively, because they can, but it's often too easy for many others to just let's churn out another whatever.
No, but what you're getting at is a lot of this shit, and you're right, today is overproduced. Exactly.
Southern Viking said overproduced.
Yes. We both said it at the same damn time, and we knew exactly where we're, because that's the problem. You get so much more feeling out of an old four-piece band just doing their recordings, on an old 4-track with, the vocals and drums and all that shit, and just no extra bullshit sometimes.
What they also found eventually was they had to build in things to these tools to make them sound like specific studios, because they were losing that. because all these famous studios had a sound
right.
of their own. Just this Abbey Road Studio 2 sounds like Abbey Road Studio 2. You know, so they found they were losing that with all the digitally created music, was losing a lot of that feel, that atmosphere. So now they had to try and digitally recreate that.
Well, and again, there's where it goes back to the problem with movies. It's the same thing with music. They have become so reliant on the digital side of things, they forgot how to do all the other stuff. Now they're trying to make it sound like this, or they've lost all that. To where, to me, I don't care if you use the digital side of it to use as a recording. I'd much rather hear everybody playing their own music. That's why I dig sometimes more so when you get these people on here where they do their own mixes, where it's all them playing all the instruments themselves, but at least it's them playing the actual instruments instead of it, you know, just hitting a button and automatically punching up a song for you.
I think generally speaking, feel and emotion counts for more than just technical sheen. You know, like it's
definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
feel is everything. You can get think something isn't perfectly recorded and you hear the mistakes in it, but the feeling in it is what's important in it. The song is important. I just wanted to give a shout out to the wonderful Davina Duckworth, who mentioned The Tourists, who I saw live back in the day. Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart's first band
nerds.
before the Eurythmics. One of my favorite bands. I've still got a lot of their vinyl here, but thank you, Davina, for mentioning them.
I know.
But yeah, feel is important. So how do you get feel in an entirely digital recording process?
Yeah,
and perhaps the same thing counts for CGI in movies. I mean, maybe it's.
I think it's all how you use it, right? I don't want to make the tool the devil. I think the user is the one who can use it. It's like a tool. It's just like anything else, whether it's a gun or a fork. You know, it all depends on who's using it, I guess, at the end of the day. I don't know if anybody agrees or disagrees, but we got to wrap this up here pretty soon anyway. But yeah, because I know Snow's got to be getting out of here. And I think Clobby, don't you have a show coming up here too tonight yet or something like that? No, I think he stepped away. But let's get through these super chats. We got Max Relax here, who sends in €6. I could talk about this all night. That's the problem. How is Sadie doing? Sadie is doing much better than I am. She's pretty much all healed up now, starting to grow her hair back. So yeah, she's doing pretty good. And thank you so much, guys, for all the support and well wishes. And she's enjoying the treats the Bama grad sent. 16-bit mascot says, "Happy Independence Day to the Tomster. Hello, Mead, and hail to the chat. Cheers." Well, thank you, 16-bit. And then we got Action Com in the house, who says, "Hey, Script, how do they put computer images on film now? For 1980s, Tron used a device that had a light dot go back and forth, exposing a film like a dot matrix printer on a paper ream." Well, I know this much before Script jumps in here. For the longest time, they basically used like a Tillicini process.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Script.
Well, the thing is, how they put it on film, they scan the film digitally and then they insert it and then they do an output to back on film again, essentially. It's a very, very.
They actually had film printers for a while for movies. Yeah.
It's basically another developing process that they output, but only if they decide to output on film. Currently, a lot of movies, even if they're shot on film, are still output and sent digitally.
You know, a lot of the time they faked it by using animation.
Oh yeah,
like to make it look like it was computer graphics.
Tron, that's the thing. Tron didn't have as much. Yeah, I was gonna say, Tron didn't have as much CGI as people like to think it did. Actually, a lot of it was traditional animation.
Yeah, and also a lot of it was like layered on top of each other, like the
right. And that's where
documentary that Robert Meyer Burnett put together for Tron.
It's a great documentary.
Gives you everything you need to know about how they did that.
Yeah, check that out if you're interested in it. But yeah, and then so basically there was that strange period because I'm trying to remember what movie it was. I was just watching the making of not too long ago, but where they were literally talking about it was such early on in the CGI days that the way they did it, maybe it was Last Starfighter, where they actually had like one of the only HD monitors in existence, and they literally set the film camera up facing the fucking monitor. And that's how they fucking got the scenes. And this is probably why George, and going back to my Howard the Duck story before, had to do it on video because they were still trying to figure out how to process a digital signal out to film in some way. Because even the earlier Pixar movies are all shot, they're done in the computer, but they're pushed out on video. All their earlier shorts. I don't know if they've ever went back and fixed that or not because I haven't bought any of their newer Blu-rays and with the sets on them, but Yeah, like the old Tin Man short and the baby short that they did. They were shot. They were just put on video because that's the only way they could show them. So yeah, other than that, nowadays it's just all done in the computer. Like Script said, it's all digital from beginning to end half the time, or most of the time, not even half the time. And then we've got let's see here, Pinochet's Helicopter Tours, who says, what time? Oh, we got this one already. And yeah, no, they're only so involved in that. Accident Seller says, the Star Trek season 3, Picard season 3, Terry had to quit the trouble matching. Quite the trouble matching the lighting of the Enterprise D on bridge on digital sensor compared to the film stock from the 80s.
Oh yeah, you could tell.
Well, yeah, and that's just because they did compositing in the 80s with a model.
No, he's talking about in camera on the bridge. The digital sensor in the digital camera couldn't be matched to do what the in camera.
So it didn't look the same on the bridge. Gotcha.
Yeah, so basically it's like the same ISO process. Is that digital sensor just wasn't able to meet the range to capture the lighting, even though the lighting schematic inside that recreated bridge was identical, apparently.
That's one of the reasons why I love TNG when they went back and scanned the film. It looks so much better. I know some people prefer the video versions of them, but I love how they look in the remastered versions. Jack White says, have any of you heard anything about season 2 of Rocher Bosch Legacy and the Terminal List? Terminal List I've heard is pretty good, I think. Reacher.
I think is coming back. Reacher, they finished production,
Reacher's like
so we should be
September
getting
or
that reviewed soon. Yeah.
September.
I think Reacher September, something like that. Isn't Bosch canceled though?
I think Bosch is canceled.
I think Bosch got canceled.
Yeah, but they went on and made they made a Bosch spin-off with Bosch, just not called Bosch. They made at least one season of that, I think, or one.
Was that what Bosch Legacy is? Or
yeah, that was like a continuation. I'd never understood why they just didn't keep calling it Bosch, but different. They did remove some of the characters from the main Bosch, and I think they may well have saw that as setting up the. I can't remember the name of the.
Didn't they just do a movie or something like that too?
I don't know, it might have been a movie for Amazon. I don't know.
Yeah, like straight to Amazon, but it was like a movie. Unless that's what I saw was that.
I believe that, and forgive me, I've never read the books, but there's another character that the same author wrote, which was a female detective who lived on the beach in a tent and worked with Bosch, and that I think was going to be brought in, and I don't know if they've ever reached that point yet.
Goddamn hippies.
Yeah. Forgive me, my wife reads all those books. I've never read them.
They're not people, they're hippies.
Yeah. There's going to be another Terminal List, though. I mean, Jack Carr's busy talking about. He's great to respond to your tweets, by the way. If you ever tweet him, he'll respond.
Really?
He's a great guy. Yeah. Jack
there you
Carr,
go. Yeah. Larry Loveridge says lighting used to be a character. Yes. Think of a movie like Aliens and how lighting shaped tension and emotion. Oh, absolutely. God, yeah. And not only that, DPs used to light characters differently, right? Like,
well, they still do.
They still do, but it's just not the only movie that I've seen recently where I feel like they actually did it with actual lighting and not manipulating shit later. Though script was Renfield. You can actually tell they actually like held green lights and shit over top.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it feels real. I don't care if it looks hokey. It's still better than trying to make it look green later.
Mm-hmm.
Something I've always felt is that when you look at a movie like Alien and Aliens, they're dark, but you can still see everything. Now
there's a lot of contrast.
Now they just make things dark.
And Alien itself is almost like a black and white movie, really, if you look at it.
You can't see things on the screen. It's so dark.
Oh, I tweeted a Star Trek still from Strange New Worlds.
I remember you doing
completely digital, and you can't discern any of the detail in it. And the lighting also doesn't make sense. It doesn't look real at all.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if you watched Alien, not Aliens so much, but Alien, the first one in black and white. I bet you'd still work.
It would work brilliantly. I think.
Yeah, it's almost shot to be like a black and white movie.
Well, inspired by a black and white movie.
Yeah, well, that too. Action Com says, "Can we get a shout out for the Wilhelm scream?" I think we can, and I get what you're saying there. That's like a
I've actually got a raw of that.
Of the new one they found.
Yeah, It's like
You should send it to me.
4 or 5 different recordings of it,
Yep.
and one little video.
Yeah, I don't think you were here the night we played the CBS or whatever news clip about it. Yeah, like they just found it here recently.
It's under a megabyte, I think, or a gigabyte. Let me double check. I've got it.
Yeah, it's probably not very big. It's only a short little thing.
Oh no, it's a 918 kilobytes. So yeah, it's
Yeah, you can just send it over to me one of these days. And then we've got Nikki D, who says, wait, J.J. Abrams got a new movie. Yeah, Hot Wheels, evidently. And I remember hearing about this a while back, but I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. Yeah, gritty and dark Hot Wheels. Has this guy ever played with Hot Wheels in his life?
Yeah.
No.
Probably not.
And I'll tell you, he really probably doesn't get what Hot Wheels are about then, because it sounds like he's making Zack Snyder's Hot
I bet
Wheels.
he makes them all electric vehicles.
Well, my kid was into Hot Wheels growing up. I wasn't so much, but the thing my kid loved,
I like Matchbox better.
thing my kid loved was all the cool ones, with the weird, wacky styles. But otherwise, he would take the regular ones, rip them apart, and make his own.
Yeah, it's about right. It's like Sid.
Pretty much.
He's a destructor, man. That's where.
I mean, I would get mad at him sometimes, but I wouldn't try to discourage his creativity at the same time.
Making that Superman movie?
No. Come on. Yeah.
Black Superman project?
Yeah.
They haven't even they've cast the actual Superman Legacy main leads. They haven't even done casting for a ton of
No. I love it. I loved it when people were thinking that was still going to happen. No.
It's hilarious. Yeah, it's hilarious.
Like every other J.J. Abrams project has been completely shit canned, except for Star Trek 4, and that.
I don't even know how they're managing to hold on to Star Trek 4.
Oh, I'll tell you right now what I've been hearing. Okay, this is the best I can tell you about Star Trek, and I don't know how true this is or not, but I'm hearing, and I think you backed some of this up earlier on your stream when I popped in there, Script Doctor, that Strange New Worlds getting 50 episode order. They're separating Star Trek again from Paramount. And this is the reason is they want it all under CBS, and plus that way, in case they want to put Paramount up for sale, hint, hint. That way it doesn't you don't get Trek with it, is what they're saying. And then Kurtzman, this is the craziest part of the whole deal, but it does make sense to what I've said in the past about his ass. When they do move it over to CBS, Sacred Hideout will have a piece of Star Trek, so you ain't gonna get rid of them anytime soon.
No. That's horrible. If
Yeah,
that pans out that way, that's going to be pretty horrible.
Star Trek's been dead since 2005.
And this is what I keep trying to remind people: we don't see Alex Kurtzman. I mean, Script kind of knows what I'm getting at, but like we in this audience, you guys, all that stuff, the way we see Alex Kurtzman, they don't look at him that way in Hollywood.
No,
like the Clarice thing, that was a big deal. What he's done with Star Trek, they don't give a fuck.
No.
Yeah. To them, they think it's working. Yeah.
Well, not just so much as working, he's slumming it basically for him doing that. He's doing them a fucking favor, is what he's doing. That's the way they see it. So him being around is a hot commodity to them because he's a yes man. He tells them exactly what they want to hear. He does what they want them to do. The only thing that's really stirred up any problems in the Trek house has been the mangled Picard season, or not mangled, Terry Metalis season 3 Picard thing. Yeah, I know, right? M names, right? So like, yeah, that's the only thing is like that did make us stink, but clearly Metalis is off doing other things, so it's not like they're coming back around to it anytime soon. And especially with all the strikes going on. The only other thing I heard that was a positive was that I think one of those series is going to get killed because of the strike. Can't remember if it was the Academy series or one of the other ones.
It might be more. That's the thing.
There could be a couple.
If it goes on for another 30 days, if CBS Paramount wants to cut their losses and pull out, which is not beyond them, they can do that.
The reason
they want to.
Reason I put any stock in this, or I would believe this, is because I'm sure Paramount has learned. Guess what? Star Trek is not $1 billion fucking franchise.
Nope.
This is what Emma Watts was saying a couple years ago. They are deciding that Star Trek is at most a TV franchise. Sure, they'll make a movie from time to time, but guess what? Those old movies we saw outside of the motion picture were budgeted very conservatively.
Yeah,
you guys got to always keep that in mind. Like, wasn't Wrath of Khan's budget like half the budget
Well,
for TMP?
Wrath of Khan was done by the TV department at Paramount.
Exactly my point. Like I was saying,
And they
like it was
reused a bunch of the effects that were already filmed
Yeah,
for the
it
motion
did.
picture.
And it was great.
again and again and again.
But the other part too. So the question we have to figure out is that 50 episode order in addition to what has already been shot?
That's what I can't get an
or
answer
is it
to.
total? Because if it's addition to already shot, then they're trying to make Strange New Worlds a 7-season Star Trek show. But if it's already part as like an overall package, then it'll be a 5-season Star Trek show, and that kind of seems to be what the Secret Hideout thing is.
All I can answer to that right now is script is yes.
Yeah,
They call a season 10 they call a season 10 episodes.
To both, because I don't know if it's both or if it's just the one or the other, because I can't get a direct answer on that. Because one says it in a way that it's a 50 episode order altogether, like period, like you were saying.
Yep.
And then another person says it like it's just another 50 episodes. So it could mean that they're trying to hit that 7-season mark.
But
like
it means, but in truth, it's not really a 7-season because seasons are supposed to have 22, 26 episodes.
But you get how these people think, right?
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
they can say, "Oh yeah, it's almost," or if they get it even farther, it's the longest running Star Trek show in history. You know, like just whatever they can fucking rap on it. But anyhow, that's the latest rumors I've been hearing. And unfortunately, like things happen so quickly, and Star Trek is so unpopular now that it is so low on Andre's list of things to do that a lot of these developments happen and come and go without us even being able to address them in a video. So I like to throw them out there when I can. And this comes from that pretty reliable source for the most part. Some of these things are corroborated by others. That's where the 50 episode order thing is kind of being wonky. But the one source is the one talking about the sale and moving Star Trek. And I think, didn't you script say something earlier today about hearing something like that yourself?
Well, I still know that they wanted to that one of the reasons why they canceled Prodigy, even though it was kind of performing a little bit better, is it was too expensive, and it was they wanted to make sure they freed up a spot for another show, and we don't know what that third show is going to be, because we know of Academy and we know of Section 31, but we don't know what this third one is supposed to be.
You know, there might be another reason for that, and I wonder if it's because if they move Star Trek over to CBS, but they keep Nickelodeon and all that shit with Paramount.
Could be.
That way they don't want a show tied with Nickelodeon and Paramount.
That would make sense. I mean, that's one of the things when you get frustrating aspects of conglomerates is that you have subsidiaries taking out the reins of a franchise, and if that subsidiary ends up tanking or being sold off, they muddy the waters with whatever franchise or IP that they've been working on.
Because from what I know, the reason they don't want to lose CBS, it's a big streamer. CBS loves Star Trek. It's all the series, not just the new, like all of them stream well for them. So like they
actually the original series, the original franchise, if you will, streams better than the new stuff right now.
Oh, absolutely, positively. But that's what I'm saying. That's the reason that they do not want to part with it. But it's the only thing I think they can hang on to and get away with it, because that means they're probably going to have to let Mission Impossible go. Because for those who don't know, there was like 3 or 4 properties that were all caught underneath that television separation.
CBS and Paramount.
But the only ones you ever noticed were Star Trek, because Mission Impossible was already separated enough from its original mothership that they were able to just continue on doing it. And I still think there's some irony, or there's got to be something to J.J. Abrams coming into the fold at that point, but I don't know if there's really much there other than the obvious. But yeah, so at that point forward, that would have technically been a 25% different Mission Impossible. If they had decided to do the Odd Couple, for instance, that would have been one that would also had to been licensed.
Well, they did do the Odd Couple. Gary
yeah, but that was through TV. Yeah, that was through TV. But like, if they wanted to do a movie, they would have had to have, like with Star Trek, Paramount would have had to have licensed it from CBS. That's what I was trying to say. So I'm sure it was the same thing with Mission Impossible and Star Trek, and I'm trying to remember the other show that was involved with that. But there was just a handful of shows that happened to. But when this whatever separation you want to call it is going to happen, I think the only ones that are going to come with them are probably going to be Star Trek, maybe Odd Couple, and what other else would you really associate with CBS more than Paramount? Probably.
That's going to be tough. But basically, what if they do another split again? They're just going to wind up back in the same problem they had.
Well, they're going to sell Paramount. They're going to
something
just
new.
sell Paramount.
Yeah.
So then CBS and Paramount will be two different companies, is what I'm saying.
Well,
That's what I'm
here's
hearing.
the irony thing, because okay,
Back
so
to
do you
the
remember when
Future, right?
AT&T sold itself and then rebranded as AT&T?
That could very well be. I'm just
CBS
saying.
might do that. They might sell Paramount Archive
Well,
and then branch out for their film division as Paramount CBS.
the big
I could
rumor
see them
is that
doing that.
Amazon and Netflix are circling around Paramount. They want Paramount, is what.
Well,
everybody's
here's
saying.
the other part too.
Yeah.
They won't be able to get Paramount in its entirety. They might end up having to do a divvy up sale where either company would buy certain licensees or IPs back catalog for it.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is how they split. They might even just split up. That's what I was thinking earlier too when I said that, is they might just turn around and split up Nickelodeon and MTV and all that shit and Comedy Central all on its own. Then Paramount all on its own. CBS then will just retain whatever in that company and they'll try and sell off whatever else.
And then they'll sell bits and bits by
Yeah.
pieces, which is unfortunate because Paramount's one of the oldest studios in the industry, and it because of the last 25 years of terrible handling.
But that's where their financial situation, even after a hit like Top Gun 2.
Well, the other part too is that again, Top Gun is something they probably would want to hold on to, but they can't because it's primarily a Paramount film, and it's not going to pay for some of the losses that they've done on the TV side of things, and it's not necessarily going to pay for some of the losses on Paramount side of things. But I will say this: if Dead Reckoning does really, really well, that's going to compromise a little bit of the sale for Paramount and what they.
I think that's what they're holding off for. To be honest with you, if you want my honest opinion, I have nothing to go on with that.
Might do that too.
I think that's what they're doing, and that's why everything's kind of still in kind of a standstill. Besides the strikes, but speaking of a standstill, we have to stop here because Snowdub has to leave us.
I do. I was going to say my inside source always comes from the very reliable source of Mike Zero.
Well,
wait, wrong franchise.
You got a show coming up here too, don't you, Snowdub?
Yeah, no. Actually, if you guys are missing Mike, Mexican Iron Man, you can come on over to my channel. He'll be showing up there in about 15-20 minutes, and hopefully we'll get a little inside
Maybe I'll have
information.
to come bug him.
Yeah, I'll send you the link, and I guess
link.
he's gonna be talking about the Song of Freedom or whatever it's called. He just got out of the theater.
We were just talking about that before you come in, and how that's been selling out in a lot of places, I guess.
Cool. Yeah, we'll come hang out, and I'll see you guys over there. Special Taco Tuesday, 4th of July celebration.
Well, we're going to be wrapping it up here shortly, so I just got a few more super chats here, and we're going to wrap it up. So,
all right.
Thank you so much
for hanging out with you guys.
In a few minutes. So, I'll try and send me the regular link too, so I can share it with the thing here.
Yes, sir. Much
I'll
love, guys.
even send the link over
See you, buddy. See you later.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else got to leave yet? Or are you all good for 3 more super chats?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. Kitty Bear says, Tom, when is midget effing after dark on what's PH? Pornhub? Oh, well, I'm sure you can go watch plenty of midget porn on Pornhub now, I would imagine. So, is it what, Rule 34 or whatever?
Rule 34? Oh, God, I don't know. Well, yeah.
Everything's on there. Yeah.
I don't think you can find a James Cameron Titanic parody yet.
You can now.
There will be
You just thought of it. Too late.
Well, there'll be a lot of going down in that one.
Are you kidding me? I'm sure there's like 3 of them.
The ship's going down again.
Oh, it's coming.
I'm gonna come.
Iceberg's coming. The ship's going down.
Nick's not here to say it. Oh, Pino Chase Helicopter says I live 5 minutes away from Longview Recording Studio. Oh, cool. Yeah, there's not really a lot of great recording studios left. I know Milwaukee, I think, has one, and Chicago does, and a couple other places. Otherwise, they're like a lot of. Do they even have any of these places, Brian, like they used to over in the UK, where like Queen and stuff used to go?
Yeah,
like the old farmhouses and shit.
Rockfield is still going. There's a great documentary
Is that what it's
about
called?
that.
Yeah,
there's a great documentary online about that in Rockfield. Yeah, Rockfield's there. You've still got your Strawberry Studios in Stockport and Abbey Road, obviously. There's a bunch of them, but no.
All right.
Yeah.
In the US, though, I wonder if there's so many anymore.
There's probably quite a few still out there, yeah.
Maybe. Accident Seller says there is a YouTube channel that buys 35 millimeter movie trailers and scans and uploads them to 2160p. YouTube won't let me post his name. Been trying 17 times. Well, that's bullshit. Because I was interested in that because I might actually already have his channel in my subscribe list. If not, I want to get it in there because I love that kind of shit. But with that, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank y'all for hanging out on this 4th of July. Head on over to Snowdubs here. Let me see if I can find the link since he didn't send it yet. Snow Dove. Why don't you guys start plugging yourselves? What do you got coming up, Clobby?
What is it? I don't know what day it is. Oh, it's Tuesday. Well,
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. There we go. Thanks.
Tuesday.
Tomorrow night, I don't know if Loki's having the comic book roundtable or not, but I'll be there at 7 if he does. If not, I'll just be on my show, Wildcard, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, talking about, well, Wildcard, whatever. I might just bitch about the degradation of Indiana Jones. I don't know. Why not? Everyone else is. Thursday night, 9 p.m., the Clubhouse with Raquel and Mark, with our usual fun havings there. And then I should be hanging out with Nick at his comic shop show Friday night. And then Saturday night, Star Trek. Of course, we're the final series finale of Deep Space Nine. We're finished reviewing all of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Nice. Brian, what you got coming up?
Having a nice quiet week in terms of live streams. I didn't do a live stream yesterday, but I will be doing one next Monday. And yes, Tom, you will be my co-host, whether you like it or not.
So.
Cyborg will be the
Not
movie
dead.
for the Canon Film Club. With that's going to be a lot of fun. So that's on my channel next Monday, 3 p.m. Mountain Time, Canon Film Club. But I'm using this down week I've put a couple of videos up in the last couple of days, which is a nice change to be able to put some videos up instead of focusing on live streams.
Helps the channel.
Yeah, a little appreciation for Alan Arkin that I put up yesterday.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, and then I did an album video today about Graham Bonnet Band's Stay Out Nowhere album. And I'm talking to a lot of people about some really good shows that I'm trying to plan, people in the music world. And
cool.
Yeah, I just don't want to jinx anything, but there could be some good stuff coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Script, what you got going on?
Don't know.
All right.
I'm still in the process of writing a Patreon review of the 3rd episode of Strange New Worlds, which was shot entirely on location in downtown Toronto, which hurt my soul because it's a terrible episode, but it's showcasing some of the most beautiful locations in the city.
So. Boy, was it bad, but you're right. Look cool. These locations were very nice.
Oh yeah, Toronto is a fantastic city visually, very clean, a lot of different aesthetics around it. It's just suffers the same, crap that all the other cities suffer as well too.
I hear you.
CC, what about you?
Got Friday late night karaoke, Saturday evening music television with Doc Danger, and everything else that I'm up to. You can always find it on the landing page of my channel. It's right up there at the top. That's basically it.
All right. And myself, I'm going to head on over to Snowdubs, I think, for a few minutes. Just go give Mikey some shit and say hi. And, I'm going to let Sadie out first. And see you guys on the morning show, I guess. Otherwise, if I don't see you over on Snowdubs.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, have a great night, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Independence Day if you're in the States.
Happy Independence Day.
I suppose you guys want to hear the midget song as we go. Why not? Here we go.
Tiny hands, tiny feet, tiny legs, but such a big heart. If I ever lost my little lover, I'd fall apart. You showed me a life I'll never forget, 'cause I'm in love. Yes, I'm in love with a midget. Such a little package, but a whole lot of love. She may look up at me, but she's an angel from above. I'm in love with a midget.
Come on, Leva.
I'm in love with a midget. Well, I love her from sundown to sunrise. I just can't get enough of her, although she's fun size. She knows just how to do me right, even at half the height. Yeah, such a little package, but a whole lot of love. She may look up at me, but she's an angel from above. I'm in love with a midget. Love is a midget. Love is a midget. A whole lot of love. I'm in love
Randy Newman called. He wants to do a duet with you.
Take care, everybody. Have a happy 4th.